Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another reading. I should say another a Batman reading. My name is Curtis. I am the host, and today we'll be reading the script for arguably one of the most underrated and also one of the best Batman movies ever made, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, released in 1993, movie based on the great Batman the Animated Series. Again, I'm Curtis. I'm not also the host, and I also will be playing the role of Bruce Wayne slash Batman. We've got Logan playing the Joker. We got Travis playing Commissioner Gordon and some other characters, including Mob Buzz Bronski. We got Anne as the Phantasm and Carl Beaumont. We got Paul as gangster Salvatore Valestra and as Alfred. We got Molly as Andrea Beaumont. We got Charlie as Arthur Reeves. And Jessica is going to be our scene description for tonight. So, Jessica, whenever you're ready, begin.
Batman home video. Masks. Story by Alan Burnett. Screenplay by Alan Burnett, Paul Dini, Martin Pascoe, and Michael Reeves. Fade in. Exterior. Gotham City. The Shady Lady Casino. Night. Above the entrance, a 70-foot neon Rita Hayworth look-alike seductively posed with one hand on her hip. The other behind her head winks at the traffic below. You can almost hear, "Put the blame on Maine, boys." On Rita's head, Batman circles around her head on a bat glider and lands silently on the roof. On the rooftop, he steps from the glider and looks around, making sure no one is up there with him. He moves to a certain spot and pulls out a device which he aims on the roof. It fires a dart into the roof with a thwump. The portion sticking out of the roof looks like a small antenna. Close on Batman. Batman pulls an earphone from his belt, which he puts to his ear. We hear filtered voices from below.
Take a good look, boys.
Interior, the suite below, continuous. It's a plush, garish hotel suite, marble fountain, gold lame wallpaper, the room they give Sinatra. A 50-ish squat racketeer, Chucky Soul, Joe Pesci in a good suit, is showing off a suitcase full of counterfeit $100 bills to his goons. One of the goons holds it up to a light and squints.
Jeez, Mr. Soul, I can't tell the difference.
You need one of them neutron microscopes. It's identical down to Ben Franklin's stubble.
Chucky plucks it from the goon's hand. On Chucky, as he steps over to the suitcase and places the bill back with the stacks of the other bills.
Now I want it laundered through the casino at $500,000 a week. $750,000 by March. Anybody got a problem with that?
On window, just then the Dark Knight crashes through the window. Glass flies like a bomb just hit. On the goons and Chucky, reacting, the bad guys are already pulling guns.
Huh. It's the bat!
No sooner does the first two goons have their pistols out than two batarangs hit it and the guns go flying. On Batman. Another goon takes a swipe at him from the side. Batman decks him with the left. Another from behind. Batman brings up his elbow to the fellow's jaw. A third goon literally jumps on his back. Batman flips him over into goon number 1, who has retrieved his gun and is about to fire just as goon number 3 comes crashing in. The gun goes off harmlessly as they demolish a glass display of bric-a-brac. On Chucky, as the fighting continues off screen, he sweeps up the briefcase and bolts the door. Cut to exterior open air moving sidewalk. The sidewalk is about 200 feet long, several stories above the ground, connecting the hotel to a parking structure. As Chucky rushes across, we pull back to see that we're looking over someone's shoulder. Someone standing inside the structure. The shadowy stranger moves off inside the parking structure. Chucky rushes in, looking over his shoulder. Suddenly he stops in his tracks as he sees what's before him. Reverse angle on dark figure. The figure is about 100 yards away and approaching, surrounded by swirls of smoky mist.
Chucky Soul.
On Chucky, who immediately pulls out a gun.
Batman!
He starts firing on the dark figure, almost appearing as if he's gliding on the mist. Chucky continues firing, but the bullets have no effect. As the figure gets closer, we see that this is clearly not the Batman, but a ghoulish-looking character with a death head's face mask. We call him Phantasm.
Your angel of death awaits.
On Chucky, as he runs out of bullets, he realizes this ain't no Batman.
You ain't the Bat.
At that instant, Phantasm glides in and knocks the gun from his hand. He then backhands the gangster, sending him flying. On Chucky, as he crashes against one of the pylons, the valise goes flying from his hands. He falls to the ground, feeling his lip. A trickle of blood is at the corner. Phantasm glides in.
Who are you? What do you want?
Phantasm grabs him by the lapels and lifts him into the air, smashing his back against the pylon.
Ooh.
Phantasm comes nose to nose with Chucky.
I want you, Chucky boy.
And with a mighty heave, he throws Chucky off screen.
Ah!
On parked cars, as Chucky tumbles over the hoods of a couple of cars parked next to each other, he smashes into the wall behind them. On Phantasm, stepping towards Chucky again. Just then he hears the sounds of wheels squealing. He turns toward the noise. On Chucky, looking horrified, he also turns in that direction. Wide on Phantasm, who steps back into the shadows as a car comes turning around the corner, heading downstairs to the exit. As soon as it passes, Phantasm steps forward again and suddenly sees reverse angle on floor, turns. On Chucky, heading up the stairwell, the valise under one arm. He looks frantic. His heart rate must be hitting 200. Cut to exterior top floor of parking structure, open air, very few cars. Chucky reaches the top of the stairs. He gasps for air for a second, then moves on. Down shot on stairwell on Phantasm, following, looking as he climbs, face heading toward camera. Should feel like a ghost rising on mist. On car, Chucky opens the driver's side and heaves the valise into the back seat. On the back seat, the case lands next to a thermos-sized canister planted on the floor. We hear the car door slam. On Chucky, sitting in the front seat, sweating bullets, he turns the ignition. The motor churns, not turning over. On the stairwell, Phantasm rises from the stairwell on a cloud of mist and heads for the car. Inside the car, back on Chucky, the car finally starts to his relief. He looks at the approaching Phantasm as he puts his car in gear.
This time I got you, you son of a...
Exterior car, with a squeal of tires, the car takes off. On Phantasm, who stops in the center of the parking lot as the lights from Chucky's car bear down. With a wave of his arms, Phantasm completely envelops himself in mist once again. Wider, a split second later, Chucky plows right through the mist, missing Phantasm entirely. On Chucky, looking back through the rearview mirror with a "how in the hell did I miss him" expression. Back on the mist, there's still a section of mist intact, and from it, Phantasm appears, pointing his hand at the vehicle and pressing a small device. Interior, backseat of car. At that instant, the canister in Chucky's backseat explodes with the black mist, which fills the car. On Chucky, who is suddenly engulfed, completely blinded, he hits the brakes.
Wow.
Exterior, wide on the car skids, swerving toward a low wall and railing. Cut to exterior, elevated sidewalk. As Batman runs out onto the walk, presumably after Chucky, he hears the burning tires and looks up. Top floor, parking structure, upshot. The car crashes through the wall of the structure right over the sidewalk. On Batman reacting, as chunks of concrete fall, he dives from the elevated walk. Wide, the car flies through the air, spiraling in a slow corkscrew until it smashes into the side of the hotel. The car's horn blares, stuck as the smoke from the canister pours out of the car. On Batman, swinging onto the ground, already the counterfeit money is drifting over the scene like oversized snowflakes. Batman spots something at his feet and reaches for it. Insert on canister. A small curved fragment of the exploded container. Camera follows Batman's hand as he lifts up the shard and looks at it. On the sidelines, a casino guard and Man in Tux step out to see the sight.
Good Lord.
The man spots Batman and points.
Hey, it's him!
On Batman, looking back at them, suddenly something catches his eye. He looks up as he fits the canister piece into a belt compartment. The hole in the wall above, on Phantasm, Batman's POV. The silhouetted form of Phantasm is glancing down. He steps back out of sight almost immediately. On Batman, who quickly shoots his grappling hook skyward. Angle on the top, even as the hook embeds into the concrete, Phantasm has turned and is walking away, becoming enveloped in mist once again. Close on wall, as Batman is pulled up to the wall, he climbs over and looks around. On faint whiffs of vapor, blowing away as if Phantasm disappeared with the mist. Wide on scene, Batman alone, looking puzzled, all is quiet. Cut to interior TV studio, close on Arthur Reeves. We don't know where we are and won't for a few beats. Councilman Arthur Reeves, a handsome 30-something, hot-headed, slick politico, is throwing a fit.
I'm telling you, friends, it's vigilantism at its deadliest.
Angle widens to include Commissioner Gordon, sitting near Reeves, looking uncomfortable.
How many times are we going to let this happen? How many times are we going to let the bat cross the line? Batman cross the line.
Yes, him. I'm sorry, Councilman. You can't blame Batman for what happened to Chucky Soul.
Why not?
Favor Reeves. He grabs up a newspaper from off screen, holds it up. There's a picture of the car sticking out of the hotel. The headline reads, "Gangster Slain."
He was there. He was after him. He's a loose cannon, Commissioner.
Widen to show that Reeves is speaking to a studio audience on the set of Gotham Insider. Summer Gleason stands nearby.
It's not just my opinion. A lot of people, including cops, I might add, think Batman's as unstable as the crooks he brings in.
Close on Reeves, selling it to the audience.
What kind of city are we running when we depend on the sword of a potential madman?
Pull back to include interior Batcave to show we are watching this on the TV monitor. Alfred, who has the bat costume and belt draped over one arm, clicks off the broadcast as he turns.
Such rot, sir. Why, you're the very model of sanity. Oh, by the way, I've pressed your tights and put away your exploding gas balls.
Widen to include Bruce Wayne, bent over his lab table, studying the charred remains of the gas canister.
Thank you, Alfred.
Another angle, Alfred leans over Bruce's shoulder and raises an eyebrow at the canister.
Might one inquire what this is?
Favor Bruce, he looks at it, rubs his chin thoughtfully.
Part of a canister. I found it at the scene of the accident. There's a chemical residues baked onto it. Some kind of dense long-chain polymer.
Of course.
He exits shot as Bruce continues to stare at the puzzle. White to exterior sky on clouds day. At first, the clouds are such that we might think we're looking at Phantasm's smoky mist, but just when we suspect he might appear, a wide-body plane bursts through. Overhead shot of the plane, we follow the plane as it flies over the cityscape.
I should be landing any minute.
Interior plane on Andrea Beaumont, continuous. She sits in her seat talking on the plane's phone. She's a striking, smartly dressed brunette-haired woman who wears a locket hanging from a necklace. She gazes out the window as she speaks.
It'll be good to see you again, Arthur.
You too.
Cut to interior Arthur Reeves' office. He's sitting in his chair in his plush city office, checking himself in a desk mirror.
And don't worry about a thing. We'll clear up these old family finances. Don't forget, you've got a big-time city councilman on your side.
Interior plane on Andrea.
Can't believe it's been 10 years.
Thinking of looking up some old friends?
She frowns a bit as she glances at her lap. On Andrea's lap, there's a copy of Fortune with Bruce Wayne's picture on it, along with the words, "Profile, Bruce Wayne." She touches his picture gently with her fingertips. On Andrea, she lies when she says,
Oh, Arthur, don't start that again. He's ancient history.
Interior Reeves' office, he smiles like a cobra.
That's encouraging. Then I'll see you soon.
On Andrea, suddenly she hears, "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts." Cut to exterior plane continuous. It begins to descend from the screen, leaving only the wide blue sky. We're about to make our descent into Gotham City. Dissolve to exterior starry night sky. We hear party ambience as we pan down to the Wayne mansion where cars are pulling up. All the lights are on. Cut to interior mansion continuous. Bruce is throwing one of his usual get-togethers. All that's missing is Hef. The camera pans over the smartly dressed guests to three lovely beauties hanging on to Bruce.
Come on, Bruce. All alone, this big mansion. Haven't you ever thought about marriage? Even once?
Beauty number 2 playfully cups Bruce's ears. Oh, never say the M word in front of Bruce. It makes him nervous.
What about the I word?
Bruce looks at her quizzically
The I word.
as she flashes those long lashes.
Engagement.
Another angle as Bruce is reacting. A fourth beauty, equally attractive but in a severe dark dress, steps forward holding a drink, smiling sardonically.
I'd watch out for Brucey if I were you, girls.
She stands in front of him and looks him in the eye.
First he wines and dines you, makes you think you're the only woman he's ever been interested in. And just when you're wondering where to register the china, you forget your phone number. That's Bruce Wayne style.
Her smile disappears and she throws the drink in his face.
Oh my.
Yeah.
On Bruce, who wipes his eyes stone-faced.
Excuse me.
He heads away. Another angle. Bruce is stopped by someone dangling a handkerchief in front of his face.
A friend in need?
Bruce takes a handkerchief and wipes his face.
Councilman, so how goes the bat bashing?
Better than your love life. Really, Bruce? It's almost as if you picked them because you know there's no chance for a serious relationship.
Close on Reeves, picking a drink off of Alfred's tray as the butler passes.
At least since that one girl. What was her name?
On Bruce, who stops wiping and freezes with a sullen look. This is a sensitive area for him to be kidded about.
Andrea, yes.
On them both, as Reeves cocks a wise guy eye at Bruce.
Andrea Beaumont. Now there was a sweet number. How'd you let her get loose?
Bruce looks at him wryly as he folds up the handkerchief. He's not going to get into this with him.
Thanks for the handkerchief, Arthur. You know where you could stick it.
And Bruce jabs the hanky down Reeves' breast pocket. He walks away. Reeves cracks a grin, happy to get Bruce's goat. Cut to the study on Bruce, who has stepped in to get away from it all. He shuts the door, muting the party noise. He looks up sullenly on portrait of his parents. The portrait hangs over a lit fireplace. The faces are stern, unsmiling, Victorian. On the fireplace, Bruce steps in and places an outstretched arm on the mantel as he looks up at his parents. Then he looks towards the fire. The flickering light plays against him as he thinks back and we segue to exterior cemetery, freshman Bruce, 10 years ago, day. It's autumn. Young Bruce is posed the same way, one arm leaning against the marble monument of his parents. He looks a little disheveled with his collar askew. Closer, he places 2 flowers in a vase attached to the monument, a solemn moment. Suddenly, he hears a voice.
That's right. And if Daddy gets any more protective, I might as well join the Young Republicans.
Angle on young Andrea, standing among the headstones on the other side of the Wayne Monument. She appears to be talking to thin air. Her hair is long, flowing.
It's times like this I wish you were around to...
Suddenly, she senses his presence and turns to see him.
Yes?
Excuse me. I thought you were saying something. To me, I mean.
No.
Bruce looks around curiously, then steps back.
Okay.
No sooner does he turn away than Andrea turns around excitedly, again talking to the air.
You know who that was? Bruce Wayne. You know, Wayne Enterprises. I've seen him on campus. Very moody. Cute, though.
Another angle. Just then, Bruce steps back in, looking at her strangely again.
Yes?
Bruce glances around as if looking for someone else.
I heard my name. I thought, who you're talking to?
She gestures toward the grave in front of her.
My mother.
Insert on headstone, it reads Victoria Beaumont. Flowers cover the years. On Bruce, looking at the grave and then up at Andrea, he seems a little befuddled.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
She picks up her bag.
That's okay. We're done. Mom doesn't have much to say today.
Another angle. Bruce still looking puzzled. As she passes by him, she pauses to tell him,
Hey, I'm not the only one who talks to their loved ones, you know.
and she continues on. Bruce calls after he follows.
I didn't say anything.
On the two of them walking.
It's just that when I talk to her out loud, I can imagine how she'd reply. I can hear her like she's right there.
Favor Bruce, trying to keep up, he nods thoughtfully. He sort of understands what she's saying.
I talked to my parents once.
What did you say?
On gate, Bruce opens a gate that leads them out of the cemetery.
I made a vow.
What vow?
A secret one.
She feigns great interest.
Ooh, a man of mystery. Have you kept your vow?
So far?
Exterior street. By now, they've come upon a motorcycle parked at the curb. She stops and regards him with renewed interest. She extends her hand.
Andrew Beaumont.
Bruce shakes her hand.
Bruce Wayne.
On Andrea, over Bruce's shoulder, she smiles at him wryly.
I know, the boy billionaire. So tell me.
She straightens his disheveled collar.
With all that money and power, how come you always look like you want to jump off a cliff?
On Bruce, who smiles in spite of himself.
Why should you care?
Favoring Andrea as she gets on her motorcycle.
I don't. My mother was asking.
That said, she kickstarts the engine. On the two of them, as she takes off, Bruce watches her. He's intrigued. Just then, a howling autumn breeze blows, rustling leaves. A shadow falls over Bruce as if the clouds were covering the sun. Dissolve 2, exterior night on moon, flashback continues. All moons should be this full, this bright. The whistle of winds bridge the dissolve as wisps of clouds move past the glowing orb, followed by a trio of bats. Pan down to the Gotham Mall. The toy store has the facade of a big clown face, the floral shop, a big bouquet, etc. Near the giant top hat and white gloves of the Gotham Menswear Outlet, a figure in black swings onto the roof. Closer shows that it's young Bruce dressed in a black turtleneck with a makeshift utility belt. He looks around to make sure no one has seen him and moves on. On the side of the building, we hear a crashing sound off screen as Bruce steps over to the edge and looks down.
Hey, dummy.
Exterior back alley at a department store loading dock. A semi-truck has been backed into the loading dock. Two burly burglars are carrying store items to the truck's van. One of them, carrying a stack of VCRs, has apparently just dropped the top one. He's looking down at the fallen VCRs. Burglar 1 steps up to him carrying a box of watches and jewelry.
What's the matter with you? This is expensive merchandise.
Burglar number 1 kicks the VCR out of his way and continues toward the van. Burglar number 2 follows with a scowl. Inside the dock's doorway, an African-American female night guard is tied up on the ground, mouth taped, watching helplessly. A third burglar steps over her, carrying lamps under his arm. She cringes.
Coming through.
Back on Bruce, looking down anxiously, he pulls a mask from his belt and ties it on, making him look very ninja-like. He takes a deep breath.
Here it goes.
And he detaches a loop of rope from his belt. Closer on burglars at the rear of the truck, as number 3 shoves the lamps into the truck, burglar 1 pulls out a walkie-talkie.
Okay, Skets, we're done shopping.
Exterior end of alley on Skaz. Skaz, we could call him burglar number 4, but we're tired of typing numbers, is a mean-looking fellow in a cap and scarf, which conceal a headset and phone mic. He's the lookout at the alley leading out of the loading dock. He glances this way and that, bringing the mic up to his lips.
All clear here.
Back of the loading dock as number 1 flattens the antenna on his walkie-talkie.
Let's blow this pop stand.
But just as the swing doors close, they suddenly hear on Bruce, who swings in, making a dramatic leap to the ground. His ninja cry carries into the shot. When he springs up, there are 2 ninja stars in his hand. On the guard, even she looks astonished. On the burglars, the men look at him and look at each other.
Who's this clown?
Close on Bruce, he points to the ground.
On your stomach, arms spread.
On the burglars, they look at him like he was the man with 2 heads. Number 1 turns to the girl guard.
You know this guy?
On the guard, she shakes her head, also looking incredulous.
Ooh.
On Bruce.
You heard me.
On the burglars, burglar number 1 feigns deference.
Yeah, you heard him, boys.
And as if on cue, the 2 guys flanking him begin to spread out. On Bruce, now looking a little worried, he glances from one side to another.
You heard me, Mr. Kung Fu.
Wider, as Bruce finds himself in the middle of a triangle.
Yeah, I'm shaking.
Close on burglar number 1, who steps back yelling.
Now.
On burglar number 3, quick shot as he pulls out his gun. On burglar number 2, also pulling out his gun. On Bruce, who reacts and spins around, sending 1 star flying left and 1 flying right. On burglar number 2, who has the gun knocked out of his hand as the star strikes it. On burglar number 3, his arm is knocked back, the gun flies from his hand, firing. On burglar number 1, he sees immediately what's happened and shouts,
"Get him!"
And he lunges forward at Bruce. On Bruce, as number 1 comes in, Bruce kicks him in the crotch.
Oh.
The guy tumbles over. Bruce pulls his jacket over his head, then brings his knee up to rearrange his facial cartilage. As number 1 flies back, number 2 grabs Bruce. Bruce in a mean bear hug from behind, just as number 3 comes from the front. Instead of struggling, Bruce thrusts his head back, striking the back of his head against number 2's forehead. Number 2 grips loosens, allowing Bruce to duck as number 3 lets loose with a roundhouse punch, hitting number 2 right in the kisser. On the guard, who is now sitting up in wide-eyed surprise as she watches burglar number 2 land in front of her, knocked out cold. Back on Bruce as number 3 pulls out a switchblade. Bruce jumps back as he starts swinging away, swish, swish, at one point cutting Bruce's shirt on the stomach. But on his next thrust, Bruce grabs number 3 by the wrist, brings his leg up to kick the fellow under the armpit twice. Then, with the grace of Baryshnikov, Bruce pirouettes and swings his heel into the man's esophagus. On a nearby dumpster with its top propped open, number 3 hits it hard, his body arching back. The heavy metal top comes down, striking him face first with a terrible thwang. He slides to the ground, knocked out. Full on Bruce, breathing hard in a Bruce Lee pose, ready for anything else. Wide angle, but as he looks around, we see his opponent's knocked out on the ground. He realizes he did it. He looks excited.
Yes.
Just then he hears. He looks over, on guard, now standing, gesturing with her head as if to say, over there. On Bruce, who looks puzzled at first until he turns toward the truck. At that instant, a shot is fired. Bruce manages to leap out of the way just in time. On Skaz, who has his gun out and continues shooting. He's covering himself as he gets to the cab and opens the door. On Bruce, now ducking behind the dumpster, another bullet strikes the metal. Just then, the shooting stops as the cab door slams shut and the truck revs up. On the cab, as a determined-looking Skaz slips the clutch into first and guns it. On the rear of the truck, as it lurches forward, the unlocked doors swing open and loose boxes and items start spilling out. Favoring Bruce, he looks toward the guard apologetically.
Excuse me.
On the guard, craning her neck to watch him, this guy's not for real. On the truck, as it continues, it strikes speed bumps, which cause more stuff to fall out. On Bruce, running as fast as he can, trying to keep up, he dodges and leaps over lamps, VCRs, boxes, and whatnot that continue to fall out. On the alley exit, as the truck comes barreling out, Bruce is getting closer. On the cab, as Skaz puts the engine into a higher gear and accelerates. On Bruce, who is almost there, with a flying leap, he manages to grab onto the back of the truck, but just barely. On road, as the semi swings from the parking lot onto the road, we see Bruce dangling on the end of the truck, his feet sliding along the ground. On Bruce, using every ounce of energy to pull himself on.
Yeah.
At one point, the truck hits its bump, causing the box of jewelry to fall all over him. Nevertheless, he seems to be getting on. As he does, deeper in the van, we see that nearly half the contents have spilled out, and what remains are mainly heavy-duty items, including a couple of refrigerators held back by rope. But not for long. The van hits another bump and the rope snaps, just as on the road, showing the semi going up an incline. On Bruce, just as he stands up, he hears a rolling noise and looks up to see 2 refrigerators, Bruce's POV, on Bruce as he's struck by the refrigerators and is thrown out of the van.
Oh.
On the rear of the van, as Bruce manages to hang onto the door handle, swinging out as the refrigerators crash into the street. On the side of the truck, as the door swings wide, showing Bruce, on Skaz driving, he glances at the outside mirror. On the outside mirror, Skaz's POV, Bruce hanging on for dear life. Back on Skaz, who reacts in surprise, then gets that "we'll see about this" look, and swiftly turns the wheel. On the semi, as it veers sharply, wheels skidding. On Bruce trying to hang on as the scenery behind him whizzes by. Another angle as the door bangs into a lamppost, almost causing Bruce to lose his grip. On Skaz, who glances into the mirror. In the mirror, Skaz's POV, Bruce doesn't appear to be hanging on any longer. On Skaz, who cracks a smile. Could he have gotten rid of the little bugger? On top of the van, apparently not, for suddenly we see that Bruce is on the roof, crouching in ninja fashion as he makes his way towards the front. On Skaz, something catches his attention again. On the round section of his outside mirror, he sees Bruce peering over the front of the van. On Bruce as he climbs down the front of the van, placing one foot on the roof of the cab to steady himself. On Skaz with a determined look as he suddenly hits the brakes. On Bruce, brakes squeal as he suddenly thrusts forward, falling over the top of the cab, tumbling over the hood.
Ugh.
On the front of the cab, Bruce manages to break his fall by grabbing onto the front grille work. On Skaz's feet as he takes his foot off the brake and hits the gas again. On the wheels, on Bruce, propping himself up on the bumper and wondering what the heck he's got himself into now, he tries to climb onto the hood. Favoring Skaz, now holding the pistol outside the window in his left hand, he drives with his right hand while firing with his left. The bullets hit the front edge of the hood, causing Bruce to duck back down for cover. On Bruce, now looking more anxious than ever. On Skaz, who spots something ahead and veers the wheel. On the cab as it goes up the curb, riding on half the sidewalk. On Bruce looking ahead, suddenly he sees what he's in for. On garbage cans set on the street for pickup. On Bruce bracing himself. On the cab as it plows through the cans, sending them flying. On Skaz cracking an evil grin. On Bruce at the front of the cab strikes a speed sign, flattening it instantly.
Ugh.
Followed by more garbage cans. Closer on Bruce, looking battered as hell, just then he realizes something. He pulls a pouch from his belt. Close on pouch, it must contain at least half a dozen stars. On Bruce, who starts shaking them out so that they are dropping in line with the tires on the driver's side. On the first tires, which suddenly blow. Front view of Skaz as the cab lurches on a tilt. On the other tires, which also blow, right in a row, causing the entire van to tilt towards the driver's side. Inside the van, as the remaining contents, TVs, other heavy appliances, all shift to the tilted side. Wide on semi, as it slowly but inexorably slams onto its side, skidding along the street. On Bruce, now hanging on the grill upside down as the cab is skidding toward camera. He looks ahead of him in alarm. What Bruce sees, the wall of the building heading straight for him. Wider, Bruce cringes as the front of the cab slides within a foot or so of the building and comes to a halt. Bruce slumps in relief.
Ugh.
Inside the cab on Skaz, crumpled in a corner, looking bruised and battered, he lifts an eye up as a shadow comes over him.
Oh.
On Bruce, standing in front of the cab, looking triumphant.
I read about your anonymous exploits this morning, and I must say...
Dissolved to exterior rear of the Wayne estate the following day. Alfred is holding a newspaper as Bruce is practicing jujitsu moves in his kimono togs. He has a bandage on his forehead and some facial scratches.
Are you sure you won't reconsider rugby?
On Bruce, posing and throwing punches, he frowns.
Sorry, Alfred, but the plan is working. I had the edge. I could feel it. There's only one thing wrong. They weren't afraid of me. I've got to strike fear in them from the start.
Just then, Alfred notices something off screen.
Pardon, Master Bruce, but we may want to postpone the shop talk, as it were. I believe you have a visitor.
And as Alfred moves away, Bruce cranes his head to see, not easy to do on one foot with arms extended. Bruce's POV, Andrea. Andrea's headed their way.
Hi.
On Bruce, as she walks up, she notices the bandage.
What happened to you? You trip over some loose cash?
He continues doing his moves as she looks around, getting a lay of the land.
What are you doing here?
It's been 3 days since we met and still no calls. I figured you must be dead or something.
Another angle, Bruce turns, continuing his moves.
Expect every guy you meet to call you up?
She glances at him, a wry smile.
Only the ones that are smart enough to dial a phone.
He almost loses his balance on that one. He quickly recovers, scowling, and throws a punch.
What is that?
Jiu-jitsu.
Gesundheit.
On Bruce, he looks annoyed, turns the other way.
That was a joke.
Jiu-jitsu's no joke. It takes years to master.
And he thrusts out his fist.
Huh.
Another angle, but as his fist shoots out, she comes out of nowhere to block it with one hand and twists his arm.
Hey!
Got a few moves of my own.
And in one swift move, she throws Bruce for a loop.
What?
On Bruce, he's on his back trying to prop himself up. She steps into foreground looking down at him.
Miss Hubby's self-defense class for girls.
Close on Bruce, looking up at her, he cracks a smile and starts chuckling. On Andrea, looking at him in mock astonish.
He laughs.
Wider. Suddenly, he sweeps his feet, tripping her onto her back.
Ah!
Close on Andrea, flat on her back. Before she can blink, Bruce suddenly has her pinned down nose to nose. She looks up at him as they both break out in playful smiles.
Nice footwork. Can you dance too?
On Mansion's rear door, just then Alfred steps out of the mansion with a tray of refreshments. He sees the two of them on the ground and makes an abrupt U-turn, heading back into the house again. Thank you, Paul. Back on Bruce and Andrea, smiling, looking into each other's eyes, wondering what's going to happen next as we segue to interior mansion, present time, back at the party on Bruce. The adult Bruce back at his fireplace in the den. Just then he hears the door open along with distant off-key plunks of a piano. Alfred steps in.
Pardon, sir, but Miss Bambi is dancing on the piano.
Brucey, where are you?
Bruce's eyes roll in a pained expression as he heads toward Alfred. We dissolve to exterior cemetery that same night. The camera catches an owl as it pans over the spooky grounds. The owl's eyes sparkle as he hoots and takes wing, flying off screen. Leaves are blown across the road as a limousine pulls up. Close on the door, it opens. Another gangster, Buzz Bronski, gets out. Though 60-something, the guy's a brick wall. He holds up a flashlight, which he flashes around. Doesn't see anyone or anything. He reaches back to pull out a black wreath. He glances at the front seat where his two bodyguards, driver and passenger, are looking at him.
You guys wait here.
What do you say, Mr. Bronski?
The gangster heads off screen. Inside the car, the passenger bodyguard looks a little nervous, eyes darting as another owl hoots. They say the bad ISIS guy.
I know.
Chucky Soul's gravesite. The flashlight beam hits the gravestone. It reads Chucky Soul, 1943 to 19 blank. The beam doesn't hit the last two numbers.
Chucky.
The wreath is tossed down, on Buzz looking down with distaste.
You always were a loser.
Just then he hears.
Buzz.
He looks around.
Buzz Bronski.
Who's there?
Another angle. Just then, Phantasm's death's head emerged from behind a gravestone as if rising from the underworld.
Your angel of death awaits.
The head moves forward as if floating on the mist. On Buzz, pointing his flashlight at him.
Who the heck?
It's moving back fearfully.
Get away from me, you freak.
Wider as he bumps into a wheelbarrow with digging tools, including a digging fork or shovel. He drops the flashlight and picks up the fork. On Phantasm, who backs into the mist as Buzz slices the fork with the mist, it connects with nothing. Suddenly, from behind, he hears,
Time to pay for your sins, Mr. Bronski.
Bronski turns to see Phantasm behind him. Again, he swings, but Phantasm is too quick, ducking back into the mist.
Over here.
On Phantasm backing up, leaving a trail of mist in his wake, Buzz charges forward, ready to throw the fork like his old college javelin.
All right, creep, catch this.
But just as he's about to throw it, he falls into the mist as if the earth has swallowed him up.
Woo.
On bodyguard, still in the car, they are already looking in the direction of Buzz's voice. Suddenly, they hear a muffled off-screen crash.
Come on.
They rush out of the car, on Buzz, who's coughing as the mist dissipates. He suddenly realizes that he's lying at the bottom of a deeply dug grave. A rope hangs down the side of the pit. On Phantasm, Buzz's POV, looking down at him from the foot of the pit.
Goodbye, Mr. Bronsky.
And he steps back off screen. On Buzz, looking up angrily, he sees the rope, grabs hold, and starts to climb out. On other end of rope, it's tied to a lever of some sort. We're not sure for what yet, although as the rope is tugged, the lever ratchets into another gear and we hear a grinding noise. Wider to reveal that the lever is on a dump truck piled high with dirt. It's parked almost flush to the side of the grave. Buzz has just pulled the lever that is causing the rear to upend, spilling the dirt onto the grave. On Buzz, pushed back down by the dirt, he suddenly realizes he's in big trouble.
No, stop. Help.
But by now, the dirt is up to his waist and still pouring in. He claws at the sides. On bodyguards, as they approach, guns in hand, the driver leads. Boss?
Boss.
Another angle. The grinding abruptly stops a split second before the bodyguards step into frame. They look ahead in shock. Boss! On dump truck, now empty. Pan down to show that the pit has been covered in an enormous mound of dirt. Atop the mound is the black wreath intended for Chucky's grave. Sprouting from within it, like a grotesque flower, is Buzz's contorted hand. Back on the bodyguards, taking in the sight when suddenly they hear footsteps. They spin around to see, atop a crest, Phantasm, silhouetted by the moon behind him. He turns to take one last look back. From the flow of the cape, you'd swear it was Batman. Back on the bodyguards, reacting.
It's the bat. It's the stinking bat.
And he starts firing like crazy. Back on Phantasm, who swirls his cape and disappears behind the ridge. Dissolve 2, exterior old brownstone the following day. The windows are covered with wrought iron. Even in the morning light, the place looks dark and foreboding. Interior old brownstone study. An old skull-faced man is seated at a tray in a large shadowy den, sipping his tea. This is, as we are to learn, is Salvador Valestra, ex-mob boss. Close on Valestra, when he opens the paper next to his tray, he reacts in shock, dropping his forkful of grapefruit wedges. Insert major headline. It reads, Second Gangster Slain. Insert subhead. It reads, Has Bats Gone Bats? On Valestra, he becomes so agitated that he begins to wheeze.
No! No!
He throws down the paper in disgust and horror, then fumbles around his tray and the sides of his chair trying to find something. He pulls out a portable oxygen inhaler and brings the mask up to cover his nose and mouth. He starts taking big gulps as he lays his head back against his chair, the picture of a troubled spirit. Cut to Interior Commissioner Gordon's office. High shot, sunset. Gordon sits at his desk as Reeves points out a dramatic accusing finger at him.
What do you mean you won't? You have to go after him.
He didn't do it.
Another angle revealing high-level cops standing in background. Reeves is starting to get his dander up.
You've got 2 eyewitnesses, Commissioner Gordon.
Reeves reaches over and grabs polygraph papers from Detective Bullock. He flings it at Gordon dramatically.
And they're polygraphs. What more do you need?
Gordon rises, trying to restrain his fury. He swipes the paper off his desk.
It's garbage, Mr. Reeves.
Exterior Gordon's windowsill. Batman is crouched down, eavesdropping. He ain't happy.
The Batman does not kill, period.
Interior Gordon's office. Gordon's at his door, about to leave.
You want him? You get him. I'll have no part of it.
And he opens the door. On Reeves and the other cops, looking in Gordon's direction, the door slams, causing a couple of the cops to flinch. Not Reeves, though. Gordon's impertinence only serves to bolster his misbegotten resolve. He turns to the cops.
Well, gentlemen, any ideas?
Cut to exterior overcast night sky. Minutes later, suddenly the bat signal flashes in the sky. Hold for a beat. Police rooftop on the bat signal spotlight. The police we saw below are looking in all directions for Batman's arrival. This includes Reeves, who smiles wryly as Bullock checks his watch. Cut to on bat signal reflected in the Batmobile's outside mirror. Pull back to include exterior road as the Batmobile barrels toward camera away from the city and the bat signal shining above. Wipe to exterior cemetery an hour later. The scene of Buzz Bronsky's demise, now surrounded by yellow police tape, the slab has been propped up by chains on a crane-like vehicle. Pan over to Batman on bended knee. We hear him talking before we see him.
There appears to be some chemical residue on the lawn.
Closer on Batman, we see that he is speaking into a mic wired to his utility belt. He picks up a tuft of grass as he speaks. It has some grayish specks on it.
Could match up the traces I found in the canister. Not much, but it's been that kind of day.
As Batman clicks off the mic and slips it back into his belt, he notices something off screen. The Wayne Monument, Batman's POV, softly lit by moonlight. As Batman as he rises and steps toward it. On the monument, as Batman steps up to it, he touches the marble softly, a solemn moment broken by...
You think they could afford a weed eater?
Angle at Victoria Beaumont's grave. Andrea's kneeling, tearing weeds from around her mother's tombstone.
Sorry, Mom, but the whole world's going to seed.
At that moment, Batman's shadow moves in. She looks up with a start. Close on Batman, you can read the surprise and anguish in his face. He steps back. On Andrea, rising with a similar look of stunned surprise, the weeds fall from her hands.
No.
On Batman, still backing up, he finally turns and bolts, disappearing into the darkness. Close on Andrea. He's gone, but she keeps looking, wide-eyed, stunned. She realizes intuitively that he has to be,
Bruce.
Dissolved to exterior, the Gotham Sheraton Hotel, night. A brand new luxury hotel. Andrea is staying here. Pan vertically up to the top floor where we see a restaurant whose picture windows offer a panoramic view of the city. Interior, restaurant, night, continuous. In the main dining room, the maitre d' leads Andrea and Arthur Reeves to their elegantly set table. Reeves follows close behind Andrea, who isn't paying any attention to him as...
So I'm having the banker cut through some red tape. He says he can roll your money into a high-yield account.
Angle on their table, the maitre d' holds Andrea's chair away from the table as she sits. She looks at Reeves with a bewildered expression as she comes to.
Amount? What amount?
I said account.
The maitre d' exits as Andrea forces a sheepish smile.
I'm sorry, I was just reminiscing.
Back to previous angle as a waiter steps in beside the table, hands Andrea a menu. Reeves smiles indulgently.
Yeah, that's okay. You must have a lot on your mind.
Hard cut to exterior, a cathedral across the street, continuous, on Batman. Batman is perched atop a buttress, partly concealed by a gargoyle. From this windswept perch, Batman is spying on Andrea and Reeves through his miniature binoculars. Lightning streaks the sky behind him. Thunder rolls. Back to Andrea and Reeves.
Remember this place?
Sure, you, me, and Daddy used to come here all the time.
Favor Reeves. He turns from the waiter back to Andrea, nods understandingly as the waiter exits in background.
How is the old guy? You're still close, aren't you?
Favor Andrea. She smiles warmly.
Closer than ever.
Favor Reeves. He flashes a grin at Andrea. It makes him seem insincere as...
I'm sorry I couldn't make it into town this time.
He reaches across the table, places his hands on hers.
But then, I've always wished I could have some alone time with you.
Favor Andrea, who looks up, half smiling. It's hard to read her, though she doesn't pull away.
Well, who knows what the future might bring.
Back on Batman, we see a reflection of their clasped hands in the binocular lenses. Batman's head moves back from the binoculars. Pushing on his face, sad, if not in despair. Thunder rumbles in the distance as we continue pushing in, and it keeps rumbling louder and louder as we segue to Bruce's and Andrea's hands. Flashback resumes. We don't know where we are yet, but it's outdoors, daylight. The rumbling continues. Truck out to reveal that the clasped hands belong to the 20-year-old Bruce and Andrea. Above them is a monorail track. Suddenly, a monorail rumbles by. They look up at it and at each other, smiling happily. Series of shots, montage, Bruce and Andrea, tracking with them as they stroll over the Gotham's World Fairgrounds, Gotham's version of the 1939 New York World's Fair. An HV Cattleborn style voice resonates through the PA system.
Welcome to a dream of the future, a bright tomorrow filled with hope and promise for all mankind. This is a vision of the shimmering utopia where we shall spend the rest of our lives.
We follow them holding hands and exchanging loving glances as they visit the main plaza, where we see a beautiful globe of the moon next to an Art Deco Buck Rogers style spaceship poised on 3 scalloped fins next to the moon. This is Gotham's version of the Trilon and Perisphere of the New York Fair. Angle on the Forward to the Future ride. The younger Bruce and Andrea hurry into a gaily colored ride pavilion. A sign reads Forward to the Future presented by Cybertron. The camera follows as Bruce and Andrea scramble into a car which takes them past a fanciful diorama of It's a Small World style doll children, all singing about the glories of life in the future, set in a model city of the future. Some of the children are riding in autogyros.
Forward, forward to the future, art in the shining bright, glory wonders are around us, a new tomorrow's in sight.
Closer on Bruce, looking as if he'd rather be in any other place right now. This is definitely too cute for him. Andrea looks at Bruce and makes a face, showing that she doesn't like the ride either. They hold their ears and grin.
Be hard and hope to light the way.
Angle on ride, the car passes by an ultra-modern Gotham apartment of the future. A lifelike android housewife chops plastic vegetables in her kitchenette with her android husband reclines on the couch next to his android dog. The husband looks up from his paper to wave to the riders.
We'll welcome in a brand new day. Forward, forward to the future starts today.
Cut to Interior Hall of Transportation, a vast high-ceiling pavilion, open at the sides, columns supporting the roof, through which the fair's monorail track passes. Over the visitors' heads, models of one-man autogyros flutter about the transportation exhibit. Closer, Bruce and Andrea. Bruce and the younger Andrea stand before the track, holding hands as they look up in awe at the monorail train zooming by.
Do you think we'll really see any of this in our lifetime?
Even as she speaks, something catches Bruce's eye and he steps away. She turns to him.
Bruce?
A prototype for a jet-powered car, quick cut. It's mounted on a pedestal. A sign identifies it as the car of the future. Bruce steps up to it, drawn by the rear jet thruster, shades of the Batmobile. Andrea steps in behind him.
Bruce? Bruce, I'm talking to you.
Closer angle, favoring Bruce. He is jolted out of his reverie.
Huh?
Then turns to face Andrea, sheepish.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. My mind was on something else.
Tracking with Bruce and Andrea as they turn and head out of the exhibit, they move across the midway, passing under a huge deco archway emblazoned with the words, "Enter the world of the future."
Like what?
Oh, just, the future.
Tracking with Andrea, she smiles playfully.
Anyone's in particular or just the generic brand?
High angle fairground exit. Follow Andrea and Bruce as hand in hand they pass through the turnstile and exit into the parking lot where we see Bruce's limo waiting, conspicuous among more modern passenger cars.
No, I don't. When was the last time you talked to me about your plans?
On Bruce's limo, Andrea and Bruce step into shot, approaching it. We see that Alfred standing at attention beside the driver's side passenger door. Oh.
Dad's been wanting to meet you.
Bruce looks pained, but catches himself.
Oh, yeah?
She looks at him out of the corner of her eye as she says this little number.
But I told him you're not up to it yet.
I can meet him.
Great. I'll call him right now.
And she heads off screen toward the limo, leaving Bruce standing nonplussed. On limo, she is seated inside the open back door, dialing a number on the limo phone. She looks up at him as she puts the receiver to her ear.
You're sure about this?
On Bruce, fading a smile, what's the guy to say?
Sure, I'm sure.
Alfred steps in beside him.
What the heck am I doing, Alfred? This isn't part of the plan.
Plans change, Master Bruce.
Bruce shakes his head in confusion.
I must be going nuts.
If I may make so bold, sir, I'd say quite the reverse.
Dissolve to exterior Carl Beaumont's office building, establishing day. Flashback continues. Beaumont's office is in a tall building on a wide avenue in Gotham's Riverside Financial District. An auto and pedestrian bridge can be seen behind and to one side of the building. Interior, Beaumont's office, angle on Beaumont and younger Reeves. Carl Beaumont, an imposing-looking businessman in his early 50s, sits behind his dark mahogany desk and looks over some papers. A younger Arthur Reeves stands to one side of Beaumont and offers him another file.
Sir, if you could just go over these.
Knock, knock.
Another angle. Beaumont glances up and instantly brightens as he sees his off-screen daughter. He adjusts his tie with one hand and pushes his work aside with the other as he makes ready to stand. Reeves looks slightly honked at being so easily ignored.
Well, this is a most pleasant interruption.
On Andrea and Bruce. Andrea beams at her off-screen dad as she stands arm in arm with a nervous-looking Bruce. Beaumont walks into shot and Andrea gently nudges Bruce forward.
At last I meet the elusive Bruce Wayne.
Bruce awkwardly takes Beaumont's offered hand.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Closer on Beaumont, he cocks an eyebrow at Bruce in mock reproach.
Sir? Don't be so formal, Bruce. Andrea's told me so much about you. I feel like we're practically family.
Favor Andrea, she shoots a disapproving glance at her father.
Daddy.
On Reeves, he deliberately clears his throat as he gathers up his papers.
Oh, don't mind me. I was just sleeping.
Wider as Reeves walks by Andrea, Bruce, and Beaumont. The latter nods toward him.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Arthur Reeves, one of my hot young Turks from my legal department.
Reeves shakes Bruce's hand.
He's someone you should get to know.
Cut to exterior Beaumont's office building, continuous. A black sedan pulls up to the door. On driver through front window, looking up at the building. He is a lanky, fastidious character in a slouch hat. We'll refer to him as the tall man. He turns to look back at the man he is driving. On back passenger window, the window slides down to show a smoky interior. The smoke quickly dissipates, revealing a younger, by a decade, Sal Valestra, with a cigar clenched in his maw and an ascot tucked into his overcoat. He's the picture of a gangster Buddha. The tall man's hand reaches in to open the door for him. Cut to interior Beaumont's office. Bruce is seated in front of the father, who looms over him as he half sits on the edge of his desk. Andrea is off to the side.
I hope we're not interrupting anything.
Not at all. I'm never too busy for my Andy and her friends.
During the following, he takes Andrea's hand and looks at her fondly.
I tell you, Bruce, I do a lot of financial planning, and when it comes to money, you can't take the future for granted. But oh, the money in the world means little if you don't have loved ones. Well, if the world means little if you don't have loved ones to share it with. Nothing's more important than family.
Yes, Mr. Beaumont.
Carl.
Just then we hear a buzz from his speakerphone. Excuse me, sir. On Beaumont, on the word Valestra, Beaumont turns sharply away from Andrea with an almost fearful expression. But there's a Mr. Valestra here to see you. Back on doorway, through the following, Valestra steps in. He says he has an appointment. Without waiting for an invitation, Valestra swaggers in like he owns the place. Beaumont's attitude is subdued, almost cowed, and a complete about-face.
If Mr. Valestra says he has an appointment, Virginia.
On Valestra, he grins a sickening, predatory grin, enough to freeze your blood.
Then Mr. Valestra has an appointment.
That's what I like about your pop, kiddo.
Wide, the scene. Valestra sits on the edge of Beaumont's desk and helps himself to a cigar. He grins knowingly at Andrea, who is clearly appalled.
He knows his priorities.
Fast dissolved to exterior Beaumont's building, tracking with Bruce and Andrea. Flashback continues. They emerge from the lobby and start down the sidewalk in the direction of the intersection where the street feeds into the bridge.
Is my shirt too big, or is my flesh crawling?
Angle on sidewalk up ahead. Valestra's black sedan, parked at the curb. Bruce and Andrea move past it. We see the tall man standing outside the sedan now, bent forward to get a close look at his reflection in the passenger side mirror as he brushes the corner of his mouth with his finger.
I hear Mr. Valesta has that effect on people sometimes.
On the tall man, quick cut, still fingering his mouth as he notices Andrea behind him in the rearview mirror. His eyes widen. Wider, the tall man straightens up and gives Andrea a provocative leer. Back on Andrea and Bruce, tracking. Andrea keeps her eyes straight ahead as if she hasn't heard a thing. Bruce, however, turns to look off of the tall man's direction like he'd like to give the guy a pitchfork enema. Oh, wow. The tall man glares back, no love lost, tracking with Bruce and Andrea as they continue walking, Bruce still glaring off. Noticing this, she reacts.
Come on, Bruce. Dad just counts their money. They don't tell him where it comes from.
It's not your father, Andy. It's everything.
Just then they hear.
Said, handle the cash box, man.
Their POV, bridge guardhouse, a few feet away. There in the shadow of the guardhouse, we see a street vendor, a guy selling handcrafted jewelry off a black velvet draped card table. He's being harassed by 3 burly, leather-clad Hells Angels types. The first biker is on his feet, bike parked in background. He has grabbed the vendor's metal cash box, and he and the vendor are playing tug of war with it. The other 2 bikers remain astride their hogs, watching. On the cut, the second biker dismounts, then kickstands the bike and starts toward the vendor menacingly as...
Well, so help me, I'll mess your face up so bad you'll be breathing out of the part in your hair.
Resume Bruce and Andrea. Bruce starts loosening his tie, his other hand clenching into a fist.
Stay put as it gets serious.
Andrea reacts, alarmed, as he starts forward, but she stops him, clutching at his arm.
Bruce, no, don't.
He pulls away, staring at her incredulously.
What do you expect me to do? Just stand here?
She relents, letting go.
Just come back to me in one piece. Please.
He runs off. She looks after worriedly. Back on the vendor, by now the second biker has come up behind him with a blackjack and smacks him across the back of the head. The vendor lets go of the cash box. And the first biker is able to take it from him easily. New angle. The vendor falls, crashing into his card table. The table collapses, flattening and scattering the vendor's wares off screen. The vendor rolls off as Bruce comes running into the fray. On first biker, the first biker turns to find himself face to face with Bruce, who runs headlong into him, leading with his shoulder like a charging linebacker. The first biker drops the cash box. It goes crashing to the pavement, but does not break open. New angle, Bruce grabs the first biker and judo flips him off. High angle, the first biker plummets into the drink. Wide angle, Bruce and bikers. The other 2 bikers dismount their bikes and face Bruce. On Bruce, he settles into a fighting stance. Close on Bruce, his expression hardens, eyes straight ahead as he puts himself totally into the now of the task. Dial down music and sound effects. All we hear is his heartbeat, steady, not racing. His brow is smooth, his expression serene. He is the water wearing away the boulder, drop by drop. The bird carrying away the mountain, pebble by pebble. His entire being is focused on his foes. Be there 3 or 1,000, it makes no difference, except his eyes flicker and glance to one side. Rack focus to show Andrea some distance behind him, watching anxiously. He can't see her, but he knows she's there.
Just come back to me in one piece.
Refueled on Bruce, his brow now furrowed, his concentration no longer pure. Another angle, the 2 bikers approach menacingly. One swings a tire chain, the other snaps open a switchblade.
Better have your insurance paid up, sucker!
Intercut Andrea reaction, watching from a distance, horrified, jamming her knuckles into her mouth to keep from screaming. On Bruce, he delivers a high pinwheeling roundhouse kick, kicking the blade out of the second biker's hand. The knife goes skittering off screen, but before Bruce can regain his balance, the third biker leaps up in a clumsy but effective flying sidekick that hits Bruce in the midsection. On wall of guardhouse, Bruce slams into it, taking the impact across his shoulder blades. On second and third biker, they beat a hasty retreat, the second biker snatching up the cash box. On Bruce, he gets to his feet somewhat woozily and charges off screen. Angle includes bikes. The bikers leap onto their bikes and kickstart them. Bruce runs into shot. Another angle. Bruce leaps for one of them, just misses him. The 2 bikers roar off. On Bruce, a concerned-looking Andrea steps in, drops to one knee beside him as he sits up.
Thank God you're all right. I was so frightened.
Closer, Bruce, Andrea. Bruce is seething, clearly angry at himself. Andrea tries to touch his face.
Come on, let me have a look at you.
But Bruce annoyedly brushes her hand away.
Andrea, please.
He scrambles to his feet and moves off. Hold a beat on the startled Andrea, looking after, then dissolve to interior Wayne Manor night. Bruce's study. Flashback continues. Bruce sits with a sketch pad, doodling for a beat. Then he stops, looking up out the window, brooding. Over the shoulder Bruce to sketchpad page, Bruce is drawing. It's a figure study of a man in a skin-tight uniform with a long, flowing cape pinned at the shoulders, basically the Batman costume, but without any of the bat-like touches. No scalloped bat wing effect on the hem of the cape, no fins on the gloves, no bat-eared cowl, etc. Back to Bruce, he stares down at his drawing a beat, then his brow furrows with disgust. He rips the drawing out of the pad and crumples it up.
What am I still doing this for?
Angle past Bruce to doorway behind him. Bruce tosses the wad of paper into the blazing fireplace. Simultaneously, Alfred appears in the doorway behind him, silently. Bruce doesn't yet realize he's there. Now Alfred listens as if he knows exactly what Bruce is talking about. Bruce pounds the arm of his chair as he speaks.
It's gotta be one or the other. I can't have it both ways. I can't put myself on the line as long as there's someone waiting for me to come home.
Bruce reacts, startled by Alfred, as...
Miss Beaumont would be glad to know you feel that way, Master Bruce.
New angle. Bruce turns to regard Alfred incredulously as the butler picks up the telephone extension on the end table.
She's holding on line 1, sir.
Alfred holds out the phone to him. Bruce leaps up, recoiling as if the butler was holding out a handful of snakes.
Alfred, I can't. Not now.
Bruce grabs a jacket hanging from a doorknob in background. On Alfred, he looks on as Bruce, wearing a troubled expression, moves past him.
What shall I say?
I don't know. I just don't know.
And Bruce exits, slamming the door behind him. Alfred reacts, startled, then recovers. He looks after a beat, clearly disappointed. Off which, White 2, close up, Bruce, night. Somewhere else. Can't tell yet, but it's outside. The background is dark, distant thunderclaps are heard, and lightning flashes illuminate Bruce's face in staccato bursts as...
It doesn't mean I don't care anymore. I don't want to let you down. Honest. But...
It begins to rain. We pull back slowly, revealing Bruce in the jacket we saw him don in the previous scene, huddling against the cold, addressing someone off screen.
It just doesn't hurt so bad anymore. You can understand that, can you?
We continue pulling back, revealing that we're in Exterior Cemetery Night, the Wayne plot. Bruce is standing before the monument to Thomas and Martha Wayne. He gestures in supplication as if pleading a case to them, trying to persuade them.
Look, I give money to the city. They can hire more cops. Let someone else take the risks. It's different now.
Close, Bruce. A wet rivulet running down one cheek. The rain, or is he letting himself feel?
Please. I need it to be different now.
Resume scene. He drops to his knees, clasps his hands in his lap.
I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
On Bruce, he leans forward, clutching the large grave marker like he's gripping a man's shoulders.
Please, tell me that it's okay.
A beat. Silence. Then...
Maybe they already have.
Bruce reacts, eyes widening, and whirls to see Andrea standing a few feet away near her mother's grave, holding an umbrella as she steps forward out of the shadows toward him, and we truck out to include Bruce.
Maybe they sent me.
Bruce rises, then stares at her a beat. Then, new angle, Bruce, Andrea. They embrace, tighten on Bruce as his eyes squeeze shut and a single tear streams down his cheek. Match dissolved to exterior cathedral present, close on Batman, still perched here. Rain is now pouring down, dripping off his face and cowl like tears. Dial up blimp motor from above. It catches his attention. He looks up off screen toward the source of light that is spilling into frame. Low angle police blimp overhead, quick cut. It drifts lazily between sheets of rain, sweeping the area below with searchlights. Back on Cathedral Gargoyle, the searchlight beam stabs into shot, sweeping the spot where Batman had been perched, but now he is gone. Fast wipe to exterior Gotham Street day, next morning. Arthur Reeves is walking briskly along the sidewalk, overtaking other pedestrians and avoiding puddles from the night before. High angle tracking with Reeves. Follow him a beat. Suddenly, he stops dead as a black limo screeches into view right in front of him, emerging from an alley and cutting him off. On limo, a rear window slides down to reveal a much older-looking Sal Valestra beckoning to him. No cigar smoke this time. Reeves steps into shot, approaching the car.
Get in.
New angle, favoring Reeves, quick cut. He looks around to make sure that no one is watching. Then, interior limo. Reeves crawls inside warily and sits beside Valestra as the unseen driver pulls away from the curb.
All I want to know is it true? Is the Batman really hitting our people?
On Reeves, with a grim expression, he nods.
There are eyewitnesses.
On Valestra, his features contort into a mask of...
Beautiful. That's just beautiful. Why? He never leaned on us before. I'm too old for this.
Favor Reeves, he gives Valestra a withering look.
I suppose you could demand police protection.
Favor Valestra. Through the following, he begins to gasp, spittle forming at the corners of his mouth.
What are you, a comedian? This is the Batman we're talking about here. A freak job. He'll crucify me.
Wider to include a portable oxygen tank leaning against the seat back, Valestra lunges forward and grabs the mask, clutching it to his face as he frantically plucks at the valve, cranking it up full. Reeves leans forward toward the partition separating the back seat from the driver, knocks.
Pull over.
Close, Reeves, giving the off-screen Valestra a sidelong glance, clearly unnerved.
It's not very healthy in here.
White 2, interior Batcave, main computer station, extreme long shot. Batman sits at a keyboard, inputting data. Then...
O'Neill Funding Corp. Adams Tool and that I should have known.
Closer on Batman.
What's up?
Chucky Saul and Buzz Bronski. They have some history together.
On Alfred in the weapons area, he is polishing the fencing foils with an oilcloth. He looks up, cocking an eyebrow in keen interest.
They were partners in dummy corporations set up over 10 years ago.
Wider to include Batman. As Alfred steps toward him, during the following, the screen shows a database with a highlight moving down a list of names to hold on the name Valestra Salvatore.
The 3rd District was the Salvatore Valestra.
The name gives him pause. In his expression, we see a flicker of recognition. New angle, Batman Alfred. Batman rises, turns to go. Angle adjusts to include the Batmobile, waiting on its turntable.
Sal's having company tonight. Don't wait up.
Batman strides toward the Batmobile, and Alfred, still with the foil in hand, steps back into the weapons area.
Meaning, I trust that once you're done with him, you'll be seeing her?
With Batman, he steps up to the car, then stops, turns to shoot Alfred a sharp look.
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
Back on Alfred, he gives the foil one more wipe with the cloth, then, on the word sir, jams it into the sword rack with an irritated scowl.
I diapered your bottom. I bloody well ought to, sir.
On Batmobile cockpit, Batman leaps in and without sliding the canopy closed, floors the gas pedal.
Well, you're wrong.
Rear of Batmobile, the afterburner flares and the car starts off. Alfred disappointedly watches it go. White 2, exterior of Valestra's townhouse to establish, dusk. Start on the Batmobile parked in semi-concealment in an alley behind the building, then pan over to frame a fire escape outside an upper floor window of the townhouse. A beat. Then we see the bat shadow inside moving across a window. Cut to interior Valestra's townhouse study on desktop. Hold a beat on various papers, personal documents strewn over the blotter. Blue-black gloves are thumbing through them. Batman looks up, scans the room. Widen as he grabs the gooseneck desk lamp, tilts the light up toward the wall. Start on a single photo. Valestra and a nightclub singer, spotlighted in the pool of light from the off-screen desk lamp. Hold a beat, then pan over the wall, the lamplight revealing, in turn, lots more photographs of Valestra and Mayor Hill, Valestra and Union Chiefs, and finally we hold on one more picture, revealing Valestra and Chucky Soul and Buzz Bronski and Carl Beaumont all seated together at a restaurant, all smiles, pouring and toasting champagne. A fifth figure, the tall man, is a shadowy shape at the picture's edge. Back on Batman, reacting with widening eye slits. You can almost see his ears twitch. Back to wall photos. We push in to frame the smiling Carl Beaumont, his white teeth filling frame, which lightens and whitens as the following fades up.
You know how much I've always wanted to see Europe, Bruce, and Dad has business there next week.
And when we pull back, the white dulls to the slate gray of an overcast sky, and we see that we've gone back 10 years again as we segue to exterior rear of the Wayne estate, sunset, flashback resumes. A rocky promontory far to the rear of Wayne Manor, we see Bruce and Andrea in silhouettes strolling along, the surf pounds below.
It's some sort of hush-hush deal. He won't tell me anything.
Closer, Andrea and Bruce. Bruce stops, reacts, clearly dismayed.
He can't even say when we'd be coming back.
Will you at least let me try to talk you out of it?
Bruce puts an arm around her shoulders, steers her towards a rock near a crevice.
Bruce.
Wait, please.
Favor Bruce. He looks down at her blankly for a beat, as if trying to figure out what to say. Silence. Then...
Oh, never mind. I'm no good at this.
He rummages in a pocket, then pulls out a velvet box, crouches to hand it to her as...
Here. You'll get the idea.
Favor Andrea. She opens the box, and inside it is an engagement ring with a glittering diamond big enough to choke the proverbial horse. She seems tongue-tied, but it's only the shock of the moment.
What do you say?
Angle adjusts to include the beaming Bruce as she looks up at him lovingly, eyes puddling up.
Of course I will.
Through the following, we hear what sounds like seagulls chirping, at first softly, but increasing in intensity. As Bruce holds the box for her, she takes the ring from it and slips it on, then admires it a beat.
I never thought this would happen. I always felt like I'd thrown you a curveball. Like you never knew what to do with me because I wasn't the plan.
Close to, on Bruce and Andrea, they embrace.
You are now. I'm changing the plan.
They're about to kiss. By now, the off-screen chirping is more clearly a screeching sound and has grown deafening. Wider on the cut, the crevice suddenly erupts with an explosion of bats, forcing Bruce and Andrea to stagger back. Bruce throws a protective arm over his intended as they look up in awe at the bats that keep coming, swirling in a great vortex, blanketing the darkening sky. It's as if hell is blown open. The crazily fluttering bats fill frame, blackening it, a beat, then fade in on exterior on Gotham suburban street, on a mansion, night. Flashback continues. The home of the obviously well-to-do Beaumonts. The Wayne limo pulls into the long driveway and makes its way up to the circular drive before the front door. As the limo pulls up, we see that there are already two cars out front. Interior, Bruce Wayne's limo, continuous, moving. Andrea and Bruce sit behind the liveried Alfred. Andrea notices something off screen, reacts with puzzlement.
Oh.
Interior, backseat of limo, favor Andrea. She points up and off.
Looks like he's got company.
Where she points, window of Beaumont's study. From the silhouettes on the curtains, we can see that Carl Beaumont has clients in there. He's conferring with them across the desk.
Business type company.
Interior, rear of limo. Andrea turns to Bruce, puzzled. He senses her unease.
He doesn't usually see clients here. At least not at this hour.
She bites her lower lip. Exterior, limo. The right rear door opens, revealing Bruce and Andrea. He leans forward to hold the door open for her during...
Maybe we should wait till tomorrow before we give him the good news.
Maybe. Good night, babe.
She turns back, gives him a kiss.
Good night, Bruce. Alfred.
On front door, we see the tall man in a fedora leaning against a column. He is using a cuticle cutter. Andrea passes through frame on her way into the house. She ignores the tall man as she passes him. He gives her an admiring leer. Interior, limo moving down the drive as Alfred pulls away, tighten on Bruce, staring back hostilely at the tall man. He senses Bruce's hot stare. He looks back in the off-screen Bruce's direction and sneers, off which, White 2, Exterior rear of estate on crevice next morning. Flashback continues. We're on the crevice from which the bats burst earlier. There's a painter's ladder propped against the side of the shaft. On the cut, a flashlight beam plays over the ladder. Then Bruce, dressed in sweatshirt and jeans and holding the flashlight, rises into view, calling out as he climbs the ladder.
They're a cave, all right. Could be as big as a house.
Bruce's POV, Alfred's feet, standing at the edge of the pit. Start on them, then tilt up, simulating Bruce's rising POV up to Alfred's face. His brow is furrowed, the expression clearly one of sadness and dismay. In his hand, he holds a small package wrapped in brown paper.
Judging from the number of bats that came out of it. Alfred, what's wrong?
New angle favoring Alfred. Bruce rises into shot beside him, alarmed. Alfred hands Bruce the package.
This just arrived, sir.
Bruce takes the package, stares at it a beat. His puzzled expression seems to say, what the hell does this mean? Then he tears the package open. Over the shoulder Bruce stood the package in his hands as the paper falls away to reveal the ring box with a Dear Bruce letter taped to it. Resume Bruce, who can't believe his eyes as he scans the note.
Left with Dad. Too young. Need time. Forget about me.
The note slips from his slackening hand and flutters off as his face contorts in sudden sorrow. Extreme high angle as Bruce throws back his head and howls, a classical Greek theater earth cry.
No!
Hard cut to interior Bruce's study, close on the portrait of the Waynes. Flashback continues. Bruce's parents stare out at us, stiff, formal, unsmiling. We pan away to frame a window, then push in and dissolve through to exterior promontory on the crevice, continuous. The camera descends into the hellhole, turning and twisting around rock formations, becoming lost in the darkness. Dissolve to interior main cavern, the future Batcave, continuous. The camera continues panning down stalactites, dripping limestone tiers as if this were all one shot. End pan on the bat cowl draped over a dressmaker's form in the foreground. Alfred steps in to pick it up and angle adjusts as he turns to hold it out to Bruce, who stands in the shadows wearing the rest of the costume. He takes the cowl. New angle, Bruce, his back to us as he puts on the cowl. Then he turns around, eyes glowing, demonic, and even the imperturbable butler is taken aback.
My God.
His master solemnly moves past him. He is now someone else, a creature dark and terrible. Dissolve to interior Valestra's study on Batman, the present. Batman takes Beaumont's photo from the wall, slips it under his cloak. He moves to the open window, and in a swirl of his cape, he is gone. White 2, exterior Gotham's World's Fair grounds, dusk, close on globe. The once beautiful globe of the moon, the glistening centerpiece of the fair, is now a rusted hulk, a white-stained roosting place for pigeons. Camera tilt pans down across the now abandoned and rotting fair exhibits and picks up another antique, Sal Valestra, pulling up in his dark sedan. The car stops in front of the now dilapidated World of the Future exhibit. A few sawhorse barriers have been arranged in front to keep people out. Closer on sedan, the door opens and Valestra, wearing a topcoat and slouch hat, warily steps out. In one hand, he carries a briefcase. In the other, he holds a small oxygen tank and takes a deep breath from it to bolster himself. Valestra lowers the mask and looks nervously toward the exhibit.
Jeez, if there was just some other way.
Valestra moves off screen. Wider on Valestra, the old mobster edges around the barrier and hobbles into the exhibit. Angle on Phantasm, watching cautiously from a nearby vantage point, he melts back into the mist around him. Interior World of the Future exhibit, dark. Valestra makes his way hesitantly through the darkened exhibit. All around him, strange gnomish shapes are seen clumped together in the shadows. Valestra pulls his collar tighter and takes a few steps forward. Suddenly, the lights flash on, revealing the old mobster standing in the midst of the World of the Future ride. Only now the doll-like animatronic puppets have taken on a freakish look thanks to rust and decay. The dolls spasmodically jerk to life as a quavering, badly pitched tape of the ride's formerly peppy theme song is heard.
Alright, forward to the future, our dream is shining bright, glory and wonder.
Suddenly, machine gun fire shatters one of the smiling dolls to Valestra's right. Balestra leaps away in horror as the long, uninterrupted gunfire rips the doll to bits. All is silent as the gunfire ends. The song has long since cut off, but the off-screen gunman comically pumps one last shot into the broken pile of junk for good measure. Very shaken, Balestra looks toward the source of the gunfire. Valestra's POV, angle on the Joker. The malevolent clown is first seen only as a tall, thin shape in the shadows. Just his eyes, grin, and the smoke rising from his Uzi are visible. Then the Joker steps into the light as he tosses the gun away.
I hate that song.
Suddenly, the Joker brightens the mock joy as he recognizes Valestra.
Gasp! Can it be? Old Sally the Weezer Valestra!
On Valestra, he forces a nervous smile as the Joker hurries in to over-enthusiastically pump his hand and slap him roughly on the back.
Welcome, Paisan. It's been a dog's age.
Hello, Joker. Didn't mean to drop by unannounced.
The Joker grandly waves away Valestra's apology as he gives him a mock comradely hug.
Oh, Salvatore, why so formal? Me Casa Nostra e su Casa Nostra.
Angle on autogyros. Suddenly, a flock of small autogyros streak out of the tunnel. Camera follows the small flying models as they whirl around the surprised Valestra. The Joker looks at them nonchalantly.
Oh, don't mind my home security system.
On Joker as he removes a small remote from his pocket and activates it.
Can't be too careful with all those weirdos around.
On autogyros, they pause and streak back into the darkness. Back to Joker and Valestra. The Joker shoots Valestra a suspicious grin.
So, what's an old-timer like you want with a two-timer like me?
Business.
Ooh, business. Sounds like fun. Come.
On dilapidated tram car, as Joker escorts Valestra to it.
Prepare to more comfortable environs. Let's see. Ooh, you must be at least this tall.
The Joker holds up one hand high over his head to indicate the height.
To go on this attraction.
He then yanks Valestra up by his collar with his other hand. The Joker looks between his hand and Valestra.
Close enough.
On Valestra, Joker lets Valestra drop into the seat.
Ah!
The Joker slams the safety bar down on Valestra's lap so hard that the old gangster recoils.
Now, hold on to those hats and glasses.
The Joker slides down next to Valestra.
There's a teensy little bit of a jump at first.
Another angle. The Joker pulls a lever and bam! The car shoots away like greased lightning.
Whee!
Ah!
Wider on ride, they streak past darkened dioramas of wondrous devices, now decaying with age. We see space-age designed refrigerators, bubble cars, personal robots, etc. On Joker's craft, it zooms into a well-lit diorama showing an ultra-modern home of the future. This diorama has definitely seen better times, having a particularly moth-eaten look to it. An android housewife, the Joker calls her Hazel, her head askew and half rusting away, stands at a kitchen counter and mindlessly chops with a rusted knife. Nearby, a decaying robot dog wags his exposed wire tail as he lays on a couch. The car shudders to a stop. The Joker jumps out and loudly proclaims,
Honey, I'm home!
Valestra crawls out of the ride, gasping painfully and fumbling for the oxygen. Closer on housewife Android, mindlessly fixing dinner on her perpetual cycle, the Joker sidles up to her and looks at the non-existent food. Bless you.
Thank you.
Meatloaf again? Oh, I had it for lunch.
The Joker gently pinches her cheek as he flashes a big playful smile at the off-screen Valestra.
Isn't Hazel here a cutie? True, she's a real homebody, but you can't help who you fall in love with.
Part of Hazel's face rips off in the Joker's fingers, but he just casually tucks it in his pocket and moves off. On Valestra, standing uncertainly by the couch, the Joker walks in and knocks the robot dog off the couch with a vicious backhand swipe.
Down, Rusty. Have a seat, Sal. Tell me what's on your so-called mind.
The Joker flops down comfortably in a modern-style Eames chair as Valestra perches nervously on the couch.
It's Batman. He's gone nuts.
Closer on Valestra, a bundle of paranoia as he tells his story.
First he whacked Chucky Saw, then Buzz, and now he's after me. I know it. A couple days ago I saw him spying on me from the roofs.
Valestra takes another hit from his oxygen tank. On Joker, reclining in the chair with his arms behind his head.
You know, I've been reading lately how old Guano Man is wound tight enough to snap.
An insane animated expression flashes into Joker's eyes as he gleefully rubs his hands.
Wouldn't it be great if I finally driven him off the deep end?
On Valestra, starting to look desperate, he stands and begins to nervously limp plates.
This isn't a joke. Batman's knocking us off, and you're the only one who can take him down.
Another angle, Valestra grabs up his suitcase and opens it for the Joker to see. The case is filled with cash. As Valestra talks, Joker stands, takes out a stack of bills, smells them like a fine cigar, and finally uses them as a fan as he mimes a yawn.
Look, $5 million up front. Whatever you want to finish him off.
The Joker raises a contemptuous eyebrow as he tosses the bills back into the case.
What do I look like? Pest control?
On Valestra, all control gone, Valestra tosses the case down.
Think, you fool. Once he gets me, how long till he gets you?
Valestra frantically grabs the Joker by the lapels. The Joker's grin instantly turns into a hateful, murderous scowl.
You know what I'm talking about. Your hands are just as dirty. Dirtier.
Favor Joker. The Joker savagely smacks Valestra's hands off his lapels, grabs Valestra by the back of his hair, and thrusts his face close to the shaking mobster.
Don't touch me, old man.
Suddenly, the Joker breaks into a big smile.
I don't know where you've been.
Wide angle, the Joker releases Valestra and places a friendly arm around his shoulders. The clown shakes his head and rolls his eyes as Valestra smiles hesitantly.
Oh, Sal. No one can take a joke like you. Of course I'll help you out.
Really?
Angle on Hazel, still chopping away in the foreground. In the background, we see the silhouettes of the Joker and Valestra.
Entertainment! No way is anyone gonna hurt my old pal Sal.
On Joker and Valestra, Valestra starts to hesitantly smile, and the Joker points to him with delight.
That's it. That's what I want to see.
Closer on Joker, he now points to his own grinning face.
A nice big smile.
Cut to exterior Gotham City night, close on spinning copter blades. The blades of a police helicopter spin down away from camera. The copter passes by the roof of a fancy hotel. After the copter passes, Batman rises up from the shadows. He moves to the edge of the roof and vanishes over the side. Interior hotel suite continuing, dark. Batman's silhouetted form lands on the balcony outside the suite's bedroom. He works the door's lock and swings it open. Batman steps into the suite and closes the door behind him just as the outer door opens. Batman quickly leaps into the shadows as voices are heard off screen.
I'm exhausted. Thank you for dinner, Artie.
Arthur Reeves follows her to the door.
You know, it's not good to go to bed on a full stomach.
Reeves' hand strays down to stroke Andrea's hand on the door handle.
We could stay up, talk for a while, or something.
On Andrea, her eyes dart around, looking for a graceful way out.
Oh, Artie, I've got a killer day tomorrow. The bank's the attorney.
Andrea's eyes catch some movement in the back of the room. Andrea's POV, Batman, a form in the shadows, but more than an indication to Andrea that he is there. Back to Andrea and Reeves. Andrea gives Reeves a friendly smile and takes his arm.
But call me, okay?
Reeves is pleasantly surprised as Andrea gives him a kiss on the lips. On Batman, watching impassive from his place in the shadows. On Andrea, she waves to Reeves, who is on his way to the outer door.
Good night.
Night.
He goes. Andrea closes her bedroom door, leans against it crossly, and snaps on the light.
Don't you ever knock.
On Batman, he steps forward and takes the photo of Beaumont and the gangsters from his belt.
Have you ever seen this?
Andrea takes the photo, looks at it, and shakes her head.
No.
But that's your father. He's the one who set up their corporate partnership.
Another angle. Andrea shrugs and moves away from Batman.
So that's his job.
He was the one element that tied these gangsters together. Where's your father now?
On Andrea, she moves to a small bar, uses ice tongs to fill a glass, and pours a drink from an elegant glass pitcher.
Haven't a clue. He's a world traveler, remember? Why don't you try Madagascar?
Before she can drink, Batman's hand enters and pushes her hand down, slamming the glass onto the bar. Batman glares at her.
That's not what you told Reeves. You told him you were closer than ever to your father.
Andrea flashes Batman an ugly smile.
You had me bugged, is that it?
I can read lips.
Then read them now. Get out.
Another angle, a tense moment as they both stare at each other, neither one giving quarter. Then Batman silently withdraws and turns to pause at the window.
Why won't you tell me where he is? Are you still following his orders?
On Andrea, he holds up her drink and swirls around the ice, looking at it thoughtfully.
The way I see it, the only one in this room controlled by their parents is you.
She looks coldly over the rim of her glass at Batman as she takes a drink. On Batman, silhouetted against the window, his eyes narrow, then he vanishes through the French doors. On Andrea, taking another drink, she walks slowly and deliberately over to the doors, closes them, and locks them tight. She turns and the glass falls from her hand. She slumps weeping into a nearby chair. Dissolve 2, exterior Gotham night, close on swirling mist. Phantasm's death head rises out of the mist. Angle widens to show Phantasm moving silently across rooftops, his mist following after him like a long gaseous cape. He pauses as he spots Sal Valestra's townhouse on the other side of the street. Angle on Valestra's window. Phantasm leaps onto the windowsill and starts to pry the window open. His mist swirls around him, and when it clears, we see Phantasm is gone and the window is open. Interior of Valestra's townhouse, continuing. Phantasm makes his way cautiously through the halls, aware of distant laughter gradually growing louder. Angle on den doors. Phantasm's hand enters and pushes open the big wooden den doors. Sal Valestra, wearing a robe and slippers, can be seen sitting in an easy chair. He is holding up a copy of the color comics section, which obscures his face. Camera trucks in fast on Valestra as Phantasm's hand enters to rip the paper away from his face. Valestra is dead, his face stretched into a hideous grin by the Joker's nerve toxin. A small bag of laughs on Valestra's lap is making the giggles. Rigged onto Valestra's chest is a small two-way radio camera device. A green light on the device is blinking, indicating that it is transmitting.
Whoops! Guess the joke's on me. You're not Batman after all. Looks like there's a new face in Gotham.
On Phantasm, warily looking at the corpse and device.
And soon his name will be all over town. To say nothing.
Interior hallway. Phantasm suddenly bolts through the den door and dashes down the hallway, headed for the window.
Of his legs, his feet, his head, and...
Exterior window. Phantasm dives to the window just as the top floor of Valestra's townhouse explodes. Cut to exterior, on streets, cop car. Their car is parked on the street. They are in the midst of sipping coffee from styrofoam cups when the explosion illuminates them. Bullock is in the passenger seat and nearly gags on his crawler as he says,
"That's Sal Valestra's place!"
The other cop points. Look. Cut to cop's POV, Phantasm. Or to be precise, Phantasm's outline, seen running inside a cloud of mist atop a nearby building. Again, it could be the Dark Knight. On Phantasm as he stops in the middle of the roof to get his bearings. Already, sirens are heard in the background. As Phantasm looks around, he suddenly sees, over Phantasm's shoulder, Batman. In the distance, atop an adjacent building. Phantasm heads off screen. Closer on Batman, he shoots his grappling line and swings off after the fleeing figure. On Phantasm Cloud, Batman swings down into the mist and knocks Phantasm out of the cloud.
Your killing spree's over.
Batman fires a mighty blow at Phantasm's head, but the Wraith ducks and hits Batman in the gut.
Ugh.
Batman drops down and spins around, tripping Phantasm. Batman grabs his enemy by the cloak and hauls him up. Just then, a police helicopter is heard approaching. Batman and Phantasm both look toward the sound. Close on Phantasm, he activates his mist screen and punches Batman, causing the Dark Knight to drop him.
Ugh.
Wider, Phantasm quickly vanishes back into his mist as the helicopter thunders overhead. A spotlight stabs down, picking up Batman.
Batman, stay where you are.
Batman bolts for the edge of the building. On police copter, the cop with the bullhorn turns to the pilot.
Stay on it.
The pilot nods and the copter peels off after Batman. On Batman, he races over the rooftops, jumping, dodging, and swinging off flagpoles as the helicopter tries to stay with him. Batman dives for a fire escape ladder, which lowers downward. The helicopter has to veer off, back up into the sky. Another angle on Batman. Camera follows Batman as the ladder lowers him into an alley, then widens to show Bullock and a number of cops, SWAT officers, and squad cars waiting for him.
Freeze!
Batman shoots his grapple and swings away just as the cops run forward. On Batman, he swings up over the rim of a huge stone gargoyle and runs to the edge of the building. He leaps off and lands within the structure of a half-built apartment complex. Wider an apartment structure, a canister of tear gas is shot up into the structure. On Batman, the canister explodes almost beneath his feet. He leaps back up, coughing. On SWAT team leader, one of the SWAT team officers reacts to Batman's off-screen cough.
I hear him.
He squeezes off a round of machine gun fire as Bullock runs to stop him.
Wait!
On Batman, he reaches for his gas mask as the volley of gunfire from the street splinters the half-finished ceiling above his head. It falls on him and crashes to the floor. Batman and the debris fall to the floor below.
Ugh.
On Bullock, he shouts an order to his men.
Get a light up there!
Wider on unfinished apartments, showing the gas still billowing out of the floors, there is a terrific amount of damage. A spotlight starts to play over the building. Angle on Batman in complete darkness, he starts to slowly push his way out of the wreckage. As the light sweeps through the building, we see that Batman's cowl has been torn open and he is bleeding. He touches his head and sees the blood on his glove. Batman looks toward the sound of helicopter blades. Batman's POV, helicopter. The police helicopter has circled around for another pass, but as we are seeing it through Batman's dazed eyes, it looks fuzzy, unfocused.
Ugh.
On Batman, he starts to painfully pull his grappling gun from his belt. On helicopter cop, leaning out of the door of the copter, he shouts back to the pilot.
I think I see movement. Circle back.
Suddenly, the cop reacts with surprise as the clamp of Batman's grapple shoots in, attaching itself to the copter's skid. Copter cop's POV. Batman, seen in silhouette, swinging beneath the copter.
He's climbing on.
On copter pilot, he pulls his gun and fires at the figure. On SWAT leader, the leader pulls his piece and points to the helicopter.
Fire!
The SWAT officers pull their weapons and start firing at Batman. On Batman's silhouette, the bullets from the copter cop and the SWAT team rip into Batman. He is bounced around wildly by the gunfire. Suddenly, the ripped to shreds cape falls away, revealing a sawhorse attached to the line beneath. On SWAT leader and cops, they realize they've been had.
Quick, around the back.
On Bruce, without his cape and cowl, still bleeding from his head injury, he slides down a hanging construction cable to the street. He falls the last few inches and warily tries to stagger back to his feet. He looks around as he hears cops approaching.
This way!
Bruce's POV, cops and Bullock, distant, blurry shapes running toward him through the darkness.
You! Stop!
On Bruce, he lurches forward trying to escape. On fence, Bruce scrambles over a fence at the end of the alley and starts to run across a street. Another angle, suddenly a small two-seater convertible with the top up skids to a stop next to him. The door opens and Andrea gestures for him to get in.
Andrea.
Hurry!
Bruce leaps in the car and it shoots away just as the cops are scrambling over the fence. Dissolve to exterior mansion night. Push in as we hear.
There are certain advantages to having a sturdy cranium, Master Bruce.
Interior mansion, Bruce's bedroom. Bruce is sitting on the edge of the bed, shirt off, his lower body still clad in gray tights. There could be a few small bandages on his torso in addition to the skull wrapping around his head. Andrea sits on the bed beside him and Alfred stands nearby.
But then, hard-headedness was always your virtue.
She puts a hand on his arm. Alfred notices this. Favorite Alfred, he arches an eyebrow slightly.
Well, I'm sure I have things to do elsewhere.
He exits shot discreetly. On Bruce and Andrea, he puts his hand on hers.
You have an excellent sense of timing.
It was all over the TV. I had to do something. Good thing my hotel wasn't far away.
Favor Bruce. He raises his hand to her face, touches her cheek. She turns away slightly as if to say, don't. A beat. Then,
I'm grateful, of course, but I still need to know why you're not telling me the truth about your father.
Favor Andrea. She hesitates for a moment, then shrugs slightly and reaches for her purse. She takes out a tissue, dabs Bruce's forehead. The photo Batman gave her earlier falls out. Bruce picks it up, looks at it.
Well, I suppose the world's greatest detective will find out eventually. You remember Daddy was having meetings that night with his partners?
Segue to exterior Beaumont house night flashback as young Andrea leaves Bruce's limo and heads for the house. On the tall man, as before, he leers at her as she passes. Cut to interior foyer. As she enters the house, she pauses as she hears,
It ain't right, Carl. You're a businessman. You know that.
You've taken what's yours. You're going to pay one way or another.
Andrea reacts to this and runs inside. Interior study, wide angle. Beaumont, looking pale and trapped, faces the three gangsters. Andrea rushes in, takes in the situation.
Leave him alone.
Favor Valestra. He turns his head slowly, a sinister homunculus, and regards her through a cloud of cigar smoke.
Sorry you had to see this, Miss Beaumont.
On Andrea, as Bronski grabs her in an arm lock, Andrea struggles to use her judo skills, but Bronski has her pinned. Favor Beaumont and Chucky. Beaumont looking toward his daughter in horror.
Let her go.
Beaumont raises a hand toward Bronski when Chucky's soul suddenly lunges forward like a striking asp and forces him back.
Watch, Pops.
Chucky casually smooths back his hair and steps aside as Valestra walks up.
Please, Sal, give me one more day. I swear I'll get you the money.
Another angle. Valestra looks at Beaumont.
Convince me.
Favor Beaumont, groveling. As he speaks, refill to favor Andrea, who stares at her father in incredulous shock.
This time tomorrow, I'm above this grave. As soon as the European banks open, I'll have the whole amount wired to you.
Favor Valestra, with Bronski and Sol on either side, Valestra leans back, glances at the other two for confirmation. A beat, then
24 hours. This time tomorrow we'll have the money, or I'll have your heart in my hand. Let's go, boys.
On Andrea and Bronski, as Bronski lets her go with a little shove. Wide angle, Bronski and Sol exit, followed by Valestra. Beaumont and Andrea watch them go. Another angle, Andrea turns to him.
Dad, are you all right?
Closer on them. Beaumont stands and says,
Pack a suitcase. We've got to get to the airport now.
Andrea stares at him in disbelief.
What? You said you'd have the money.
Another angle, Beaumont starts shoving papers into his briefcase.
It's not that simple. The money's tied up in investments. It could take weeks to free it up.
On Andrea, she's never seen her father like this before. She rushes to him, slams the file drawer shut, forcing him to face her.
But I can't leave. Bruce proposed to me. We're going to get married.
Angle includes window. Beaumont grabs Andrea by the shoulders before she can finish and shakes her.
Listen to me. I just use up the last shred of pity Sal Valestra has. If I don't pay him back in 24 hours, they'll find us and they will kill us both.
Drags her to the window, pulls open the blind tiny fraction.
Look.
Closer on window, Andrea leans forward to peer through the crack in the blinds. Her POV, street, night. We can barely see the tall man seated in the parked car.
You see, one way or another, they'll get what they want.
Back to shot, Andrea pulls away from the window, looks at her father, tears in her eyes.
How? Why did you do this, Dad? Why did you get involved with these people?
I'm sorry, Andy. I just wanted a chance for you, and I'll get you out of this. Somehow we'll be able to free those guys, whatever it takes. That's what I promise.
Close on Andrea, looking up at him, tearful, hurt, and betrayed, but trusting. Cut to exterior Beaumont house, night. The tall man sits in the car before the house, shuffling a deck of playing cards. The night wind whistles outside. Exterior rear of house, night. We see two shadowy figures moving quickly and furtively from the house into the woods beyond. Each carries a suitcase. This we hear.
We hid all over Europe, eventually settled in the Mediterranean coast. Dad was able to parlay the money he embezzled into a fortune.
Interior Bruce's bedroom, present. Andrea and Bruce sitting on the bed as we left them. Andrea stares at the floor as she finishes her story.
Finally, he had enough money to pay them back. Or so he thought.
She looks at him.
But when he contacted them, it turned out it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. They wanted interest compounded in blood. He had to find another way.
Favor Bruce. He reacts grimly.
The man in the costume. Her father?
He said he'd get them somehow. When I heard about Chucky Soul, well, I had to come back to find him, to stop him.
Another angle. She stands, looks down at him.
I'm sorry, Bruce. That's twice now I've come into your life and screwed it up.
She starts for the door. Bruce stands, takes her arm, pulls her to him, closer on them. They gaze into each other's eyes and then kiss the kind of kiss that Max Steiner wrote scores for. Aww. Angle includes door. Alfred walks in with the tea tray, sees them, turns without missing to exterior Wayne Manor patio day. The following morning, the sun shines down more brightly than we've ever seen in Gotham. Closer. Andrea walks out, sipping a cup of coffee, wearing one of Bruce's pajama shirts, a look of tranquility on her face. As a morning breeze whips around her, Bruce, still bandaged and wearing pajama pants, steps in from behind, puts his arms around her, and draws her close. She smiles, placing the cup on a patio table and turns to face him, putting her arms around his neck.
Can we make it work this time?
I want to say yes, but you know it's going to come down to between me and your father.
Closer, Andrea rests her head on Bruce's chest.
Daddy doesn't matter anymore.
Cut to exterior Wayne Manor driveway day. Andrea is now in her now top-down convertible. Bruce is leaning over the car, giving his girl his goodbye.
I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you tonight.
I'll be here.
She gives him a wave and drives off. Angle on Bruce, watching her go. Alfred steps cheerfully out of the main doors.
It's so good to see you and Mrs. Beaumont together again. Might one ask what this bodes for your alter ego?
On Bruce, deeply troubled.
I'm not sure, Alfred. So much has changed.
Alfred raises an eyebrow as Bruce walks back into the house.
You still love each other. That much, at least, has not changed.
He follows Bruce inside. Interior, Wayne Manor, bedroom, close on table. On it rests the photo of Beaumont and the gangsters, next to a small framed reproduction of the portrait of Thomas and Martha Wayne that hangs in the den. Pull back to include Bruce and Alfred as they enter. Bruce is in the throes of indecision.
It's true. I love her. Maybe after just settled.
He picks up the picture of his parents, looks at it.
Maybe Dad.
Another angle, including Alfred, who is very happy indeed to hear this.
I am sure they would have wanted you to be happy, sir.
On Bruce, Bruce nods, sets the picture down. As he does so, he notices the photo laying beside it. He picks it up, studies it, frowns.
Is something wrong?
On photo, we can see the shadowy shape of the tall man near the others. Camera pushes in on the tall man as Bruce says,
Maybe.
Cut to interior Batcave, close on computer. Bruce, Alfred. Bruce, wearing a robe over the pajama trousers, sits behind the computer with Alfred standing nearby. Bruce places the photo on a scanner. Angle on computer. As Bruce talks, the photo is enlarged onto the computer's main screen.
Computer. Isolate image and enlarge.
On computer screen, the area around the tall man is instantly blacked out and his facial image is enlarged several times, filling it a good portion of the screen.
Render an accurate likeness based on visible features.
The photo now vanishes completely, leaving only computer-generated lines suggesting the visible parts of the tall man's face. The computer starts sketching out his face. On Bruce, his eyes widen with realization.
Oh no.
Truck in on Bruce's face, growing angry and hard. Ripple dissolve to interior chemical plant surreal sequence. A freakish, surreal reinterpretation of the chemical plant where Batman and the Joker first met. We see the tall man bolting back in fear as a looming silhouetted Batman looms over him. The tall man falls into an impossibly wide vat of green chemicals. The chemicals swirl and boil, filling the screen. Suddenly, it turns into a swirling, surrealistic jumble of purple and green colors, out of which erupt various objects of Joker-related imagery. Playing cards, shattered teeth, Harley, laughing fish, murderous robot clown toys, and finally, a gigantic image of the Joker himself, evil as sin and laughing to bust a gut. The green liquid fills the screen, then freezes, and camera pulls back to show the image of the Joker. The image dissolves back to the tall man on the Bat computer screen, now completely drawn. Police fingerprint blotches appear next to his face. Lettering underneath pops up, Jack Napier. On Bruce, looking at the image with cold hatred.
Joker.
Cut to exterior Gotham City Hall day. Through the window of his office, we see Councilman Reeves on the phone. Reeves is pacing as he speaks, waving his free arm in rage.
You're telling me there were 4 precincts on Batman's boot heels and he still got away?
Interior Reeves's office. Reeves slams the phone down and glares at it.
Unbelievable.
Tisk tisk. And to think our tax money goes to pay those jerks.
Reeves turns, surprised by the voice. Camera pans to the Joker, dressed in his top coat and hat, leaning against the doorway of a back room.
You!
Reeves quickly starts to hurry toward the other door.
That's right, Arnie. Bring the press, why don't you?
Angle on Joker, mugging as if for imaginary photographers.
What a photo op! The councilman and his wacky pal.
On Reeves, he hesitates by the door.
You're no friend of mine.
On Joker, he looks mock-wounded.
Oh, Artie! Crushed! How the high and mighty forget.
The Joker moves casually toward Reeves's desk and sits down in the chair.
Don't you remember? You, me, Sally and the gang.
Another angle, the Joker props his legs up on Reeves's desk as the councilman moves closer, protesting.
I never met them or you. I worked for Beaumont. I didn't know what he was doing.
On Joker, he playfully picks up a letter opener and mimes picking his gloved fingernails.
Oh, but you knew about it afterwards.
The Joker uses the letter opener to tilt up the brim of his hat and then grins conspiratorially at Reeves.
And put it to good use, eh?
On Reeves and Joker, Reeves feels trapped but still tries to hold a brave front.
What do you want?
The Joker stabs the letter opener into the desk for emphasis.
I want to find out who's iced the old gang.
Haven't you read the papers? It's Batman.
On Joker, he playfully holds up his palm, showing a joy buzzer in it. He buzzes it with his thumb.
Wrong! Nope. I've seen the guy. He looks more like the ghost of Christmas past. Nowhere near as cute as Batboy.
Close on Reeves, he looks honestly surprised at this.
You're saying it's someone else?
The Joker leans in to look him squarely in the face.
Yeah. Someone who wouldn't mind seeing our old pals out of the way.
The Joker's lower lip quivers in mock sadness.
Maybe. Me too.
The Joker's fake sorrow instantly vanishes as he glares at Reeves.
Oh, that's when I thought about you, Arturo. An important, understanding guy like you could find it awkward if certain secrets were revealed about his past.
Wider on Reeves, protesting his innocence as Joker rises and stalks forward.
Wait, you're not saying that I...
Just then, Reeves' desk phone. Mr. Reeves, Miss Beaumont on the line? The Joker looks at the phone curiously.
Beaumont? Not the babe.
The Joker flashes Reeves a sly look.
You devil, you.
Angle includes phone. The Joker hits the speaker button. Andrea's voice is heard.
Arthur?
Forced to take the call, Reeves leans forward to pick up the phone, but the Joker holds him back, indicating that he wants to listen too.
Hello, Andrea. We're still on for lunch, right?
Cut to interior Andrea's car traveling. Andrea speaks on her car phone.
I'm sorry, I got hung up. I'll explain everything tonight, okay?
Cut to on Joker and Reeves. Reeves looks at the Joker nervously as he concludes the call.
All right, I'll see you then.
With a flourish, the Joker presses the speaker button as the call ends. He flashes Reeves a big cat who swallowed the canary smile and casually saunters around to position himself between Reeves and the door.
Now, ain't that a coinky-dink? We're talking about the old man, and the spawn of his loins just so happens to call. Makes you want to laugh, doesn't it, Artie?
On Reeves, boxed in by the Joker, frantically looking for a way around him. There is none. The Joker's laughing shadow falls over the frightened counselor. Cut to exterior Gotham Hospital night. Truck in on a lit window in the upper reaches of the hospital. Laughter is coming from the room. Dissolve through to interior hospital continuous. Councilman Reeves, dressed in a hospital robe, is twitching back and forth on the bed, laughing uncontrollably. His face is twisted almost completely into the Joker's rictus smile. A doctor and a tray-bearing nurse stand nearby, trying to administer to Reeves, but he's moving too much for the doctor to give him an injection.
Councilman, please. You've got to control yourself.
I'm trying, for God's sake.
Another angle, Reeves's arms flail wildly, knocking the tray out of the nurse's hands. The nurse holds Reeves down and the doctor gives him the shot. Reeves's laughter subsides and he sags back onto the bed.
There, that should relax you enough for the toxin to run its course. Try to stay calm.
Okay.
You're a lucky man. If your secretary hadn't found you.
The doctor and nurse exit. Camera pans over to the window to show Batman's silhouetted form entering. On Reeves, he turns and sees Batman off screen. The ominous bat shadow falls over him.
No!
On Batman, a dark shape looming over the bed.
Why did the Joker meet with you?
On Reeves, he just shakes his head, his mouth stretching out into a panicked grin, tears forming at the edges of his eyes. On Batman, he looms threateningly over the bed.
It has to do with the gangster murders, doesn't it? He thinks you're involved. Why?
Close on Reeves, tears stream out of Reeves's eyes as he tries to keep himself from laughing.
I don't know.
Batman's hand reaches in and yanks Reeves up by the front of his gown. Camera follows Reeves up as he stares into Batman's narrow-slitted eyes.
That's not the answer I want.
Terrified, Reeves starts to babble.
Beaumont needed me to help him and Andrea get out of town. He kept in touch.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Another angle, Reeves swallows hard, and the ugly truth finally comes out.
Years ago, my first election campaign, I was running out of money and asked Beaumont for help. He said no!
Batman scowls grimly, getting the picture.
So you sold him to the mob.
Reeves starts to giggle uncontrollably again.
I was broke, desperate. They said all they wanted was their money back.
On Batman and Reeves, scowling with disgust, Batman tosses the now roaring Reeves back onto the bed. He sweeps back out through the window a second before the doctor and nurse run in to try to calm down Reeves. Dissolve to interior Andrea's hotel room, looking out at the balcony in the night. A bat-wing shape drops down from off-screen, steps into the dark room. Another angle, Batman moves about the room, a shadow among shadows. He opens the closet cautiously, glances into it, then approaches the desk. On desk, Andrea's locket lies there, illuminated by a sliver of moonlight. Batman reaches into shot and picks it up. His hand picks it up. His hand brings it close to camera and his thumb trips the release catch. The locket springs open, revealing side-by-side pictures of a younger Bruce and Andrea. Reverse angle, Batman. His face is set in stone. He snaps the locket shut and drops it back on the desk. The chain runs through his fingers like water. Wide angle, he turns toward the door and is about to leave when the phone rings. He turns toward it. On phone, Batman picks it up, holds it to his ear, and listens.
Hello? Anybody home?
Angle includes window. With the moon shining through it, we can see 3 black dots hovering against the lunar disk, growing gradually larger. Over this next scene, gradually dial up motor sound effects. Batman has his back to the window as he listens to the phone.
Oopsie, even though you never call and you never write, I still got a soft spot for you. So I'm sending you a few gifts. Airmail.
The motor sound effects are now loud enough for Batman to notice. He wheels toward the window. The approaching dots are now recognizable as the small autogyros from the Gotham's World's Fair, each with the Joker's grinning face on them, and each sporting enough plastique to orbit Kate Smith.
Oh, by the way, I wouldn't recommend jumping out the window this time. Ta-ta, toots.
Another angle, the Joker's laughter continues as Batman drops the phone receiver. Angle includes window. The first autogyro is about to cross the balcony as the Dark Knight whips out his grappling gun and fires the grappling hook toward the approaching menace. Exterior hotel room on balcony. The grappling hook shoots in and strikes the first autogyro, driving it back into the next one, which is likewise driven backwards into the third. Pull back as the 3 explode like a chain of firecrackers, really big firecrackers, doing severe damage to the outside of the building wall. Interior room, Batman continuous. Batman dives for cover behind the couch as shrapnel from the explosions pulverize the French windows, sending shards of broken glass sleeting across the room. Another angle, smoke wreathes the room. Batman rises cautiously and approaches the balcony, a batarang in one hand, ready to fend off any autogyros that might have avoided the chain reaction. But all is silent, save for the Joker laughing his head off on the other end of the line. Cut to interior future home continuous. The Joker playfully fidgets with the phone.
Hello? Hello? Operator, I believe my party's been disconnected.
He hangs up the phone, turns towards Hazel in the background.
I gotta tell ya, I just kill me sometimes. When I'm not killing other people.
He presses a button on a remote control console nearby, and Hazel begins laughing, creaky electronic laughter as well. Cut to exterior elsewhere in the fairgrounds, night. Andrea, medium close from the shoulders up, dressed in black, haunted eyes. She hears the off-screen laughter, which begins to reverb as we dissolve to exterior Mediterranean villa, late afternoon, flashback. A remote pastoral scene overlooking an unbelievably blue sea. Andrea carries groceries in cloth sacks up the steps. The late sun casts long shadows. Closer, as she reaches for the door, it is suddenly pulled open from within and the tall man steps out. Andrea stares at him in shock.
You? But he paid you. Dad!
Another angle, she hurls herself past him into the villa, dropping the sacks of groceries. The tall man grins, uses his handkerchief to wipe his prints from the doorknob. He stuffs it back into his breast pocket, fixing it just so. Wide angle, the tall man starts down the steps, glancing at the spilled produce.
Didn't buy him dinner, too.
Oh.
The laughter builds as he continues down the steps. It's the same laughter we heard from the Joker, and it reverbs the same way as it brings us back to exterior fairgrounds night, Andrea, as before. Her face bleak, pull back to see her dressed in the Phantasm costume. She raises the Death's head mask and dons it, stands framed against the decaying remnants of the future. Cut to interior future home continuous. The Joker's reclining on the decaying Eames chair. A big screen TV is on, displaying static. The Joker aims his remote channel surfing. The screen clicks from one channel to another, all showing nothing but static.
Look at this, Hazel. Same boring thing on every channel. I tell you, television just keeps getting worse.
He stands and hurls the remote into the screen. On screen, it shatters and showers spark. Another angle, Joker walking about, scratching his sides as he stretches.
Well, Hayes, guess it's time to call it a night.
Exterior future home night. The door opens and the Joker boots the electronic dog out.
Out, Rusty!
The robot animal shatters on a broken concrete pylon. Exterior home, angle on entrance. A black figure wreathed in smoke steals toward the doors. Interior house, Joker. The Joker turns out the light and places an arm around his honey's waist.
What do you say, hun? Feeling the old electricity tonight?
Another angle. He turns, sees the curtains rustling in the breeze. The patio doors are open. The Joker raises his eyebrows.
Ain't that always the way? You get in the mood and company shows up.
Wide angle. The blackness before the Joker seems to solidify into a column of thick black smoke. Phantasm steps from the smoke, glaring at the Joker like hell-made flesh.
Dusk, ain't that always the way? You get in the mood and company shows up.
Give it the wrong line.
And
Come back in.
Why you don't drink wine?
Jack Napier, your angel of death awaits.
favorite Joker. He's surprised.
Surprise, lady! You're harder to kill than a cockroach on steroids.
On Phantasm, she hesitates a beat, then pulls the mask off.
So you figured it out.
On Joker, smug.
Gotta hand it to you. Nice scheme. Costume's a bit theatrical, but hey, who am I to talk?
Another angle. He suddenly hurls a punch at her. Andrea sidesteps nimbly, raises an arm toward the Joker. Closer. The black smoke seems to ripple from it like a living thing, enveloping the Joker's head. Joker staggers backwards, waving his hand frantically. He glares. Gas hisses from the flower in his lapel in a narrow stream toward Andrea. Favorite Andrea, she once again disappears in smoke. The Joker's gas stream passes harmlessly through the thick black fog. Favorite Joker looking about in vain for an antagonist.
Nice trick, sweetheart. You could teach old Batsy a thing or two about disappearing.
Another angle, Andrea suddenly appears behind the Joker and sends him flying ass of her teacup plate kick. Right. Favorite Andrea. She grabs the Joker, pulls him to his feet, then belts him again. Wide angle. Andrea stalks toward the Joker, who backs away from her on his hands and knees.
You're not laughing anymore. Thought you found death amusing.
Follow Joker as he pushes pieces of furniture aside in a desperate attempt to get away from her.
Oh, I do. I do.
Closer, he backs up against the control panel for the robot. His hand crawls like a frantic spider over the buttons.
But what I enjoy most is...
Close on his hand, his finger pushes the button he pushed earlier.
a good laugh.
Wide angle, Hazel the robot suddenly begins laughing, jerking her arms spasmodically. Phantasm whips about in anticipation of an attack from behind. On Joker, he seizes a futuristic food processor and hurls it off screen.
Made you look.
On Andrea, she starts to turn back, but the piece of equipment strikes her, dropping her to her knees.
Oof.
Angle includes rear glass doors. The Joker turns and runs away from the dazed Andrea. He crashes through the doors and dashes into the night. On Andrea, she jerks herself to her feet, defeating the pain by sheer force of will. She charges after the Joker. Cut to interior transportation exhibit establishing night. Considerably atrophied from when we last saw it in flashback, a giant automobile tire advertising Regal tires has seen better days. Other exhibits include a huge car battery and a giant turbine prop. Another angle, Andrea enters shot cautiously, half enveloped in mist. She reacts as she hears
Smokey the Babe, just in time to meet her biggest fan.
Angle includes turbine prop, which suddenly begins to turn. It cranks rapidly, quickly producing an intake suction of hurricane proportions. On Andrea, bracing herself against the rising gale, dust and small debris blow through shot. The wind strips away her concealing fog, revealing her form-fitting costume. On Joker, crouching in the shadows of what was once a concession stand, behind the turbine, holding a portable control mechanism. He twists the dial on it.
How about a little pick-me-up?
On Andrea, Andrea's lifted from the floor by the wind. She grabs one of the wires of the giant car battery to keep from being blown off screen into the prop. Closer on her, the wind tears at her, ripping her cape from her. Debris pummels her, causing her grip to slip until she's barely hanging onto the cable's end. Close on her hands, they lose their grip, refueled as she's blown several yards closer to the prop, only to stop her flight by grabbing the fin of the jet car seen in flashback. On Andrea, as she tries to grip the fin, but it's too smooth, her fingers slide along the edge of the fin until she's hanging onto the end. All the while we hear on Batman, who suddenly appears in the far entrance, he sees Andrea barely hanging on. Suddenly, she loses her grip and flies through the air toward the turbine. On Batman, he shoots his grappling gun. On the turbine, as she is about to be sucked into the turbine, the grappling hook latches onto her belt and stops her in midair. On Joker, looking at Batman in anger.
What?
On Batman, bracing himself as he holds onto the grappling gun. Close on grappling gun, which begins to turn, drawing in the cable. On Andrea, as she is pulled away from the turbine. On Joker, angry beyond words, he cranks the power to the max. Wide. As the turbine spins to a higher pitch, the pull is so strong that Andrea's body is doubled over by the wind. On Batman, who is literally sliding on his feet toward the wind as he tries to hold on. On Joker, smiling maliciously, he may kill two birds with one stone. On Batman, as he slides up to a building support pillar, he steps around it to use it to help brace himself. The wind is blowing furiously at him now. Close on Batman, using all his strength, he holds onto the grappling device with one hand while he pulls out a batarang with another. On the batarang, it's red, folded in half. With a flip of his hand, he opens it to reveal that it has tiny rocket thrusters. On Batman, looking over, he throws the jet-powered batarang. On the batarang, which bursts into jet-powered flight the second it's thrown and zooms off screen. On Batman, Andrea is reeled into shot. Batman grabs her up and leaps off screen. On Giant Tire, the batarang jets into shot against the wind and explodes at the base of the tire. The tire is jolted free of its anchorage and begins to roll off screen. On Joker, he reacts to this, turns and takes to his heels. Wide angle, the huge tire, aided by the turbine suction, rolls into the huge turbine, which shatters and explodes. On Batman and Andrea, as the final pieces of debris fall down, they both rise, regaining their bearing. Closer, they regard each other against an apocalyptic flaming background.
Your father's dead, isn't he? You came into town early to get Chucky's soul, so you could shift the blame to your father, if you had to.
They took everything, Bruce. My dad, my life, you. I'm not saying it's right or even sane, but it's all I've got left. So either help me or get out of my way.
Another angle, Batman takes a few steps toward her.
You know I can't do that.
Ugh, look at what they did to us. What we could have had, they have to pay.
Favor Batman, torn, hurting. He takes her by the shoulders tenderly.
Hold on. But Andy, what will vengeance solve?
Sorry, hold on. Oh. She looks at him, eyes dry and empty.
If anyone knows the answer to that, Bruce, it's you.
Stung, he lets her go. The sadness deepens if possible.
Leave Andy now, please.
She looks at him hard for a beat, then steps back. Wider as she backs into the shadows, Batman turns away. Mustering up whatever resolve he has left, he heads for the Joker. Cut to exterior center of fairgrounds, night. The Joker's near the main exposition area of the fair. He runs to a set of lockers and yanks one open. Inside is a large, cumbersome jetpack harness. We're talking Bell Labs here rather than the Rocketeer. Another angle, he straps it on, then steps over to a power pole and opens a circuit cabinet on it. Closer, inside is a large knife switch. The Joker throws it. There's a crackle of electricity as the Joker steps back. A batarang whirls into shot and smashes the circuit cabinet, which erupts in sparks. Angle includes Batman approaching.
Joker.
Favor Joker, he grins sardonically.
You're too late, Batman. There's 20 miles of tunnels under this place, and they're all filled with high explosives. In 5 minutes, everything goes up in the biggest blast since the Arkham Christmas party.
Wide angle, the Joker fires up the rocket pack and rises into the air on a column of flame. On Batman traveling, running, leaping over debris, he whips out his grappling gun and fires it up off screen. On grappling hook traveling, shooting up against a blurred background, the hook's tines opening. It runs out of cable, stops just short of the Joker's leg, and falls back off screen. Reaction shot, Batman, tight-lipped with fury. He tosses the grappling gun aside, not waiting for the cable to rewind, and dashes off screen. Long shot, Batman, running, hurtling over broken remnants of railings. He leaps onto a semi-demolished building that was once a giant computer display, climbs it like a cat. Closer on top of building, Batman climbs to the top, stands silhouetted against the moon. He hurls a batarang with line attached up off screen. On Joker moving, pan down to his leg where the batarang wraps around it. Resume Joker, he reacts, looks down. On Batman, he leaps into the air and begins to climb the cable. On Joker, he loses some altitude as Batman's weight is added to his.
Oh, you just don't know when to quit, do you?
His POV, Batman climbing doggedly up the rope. He can only go so far, however, because the rocket exhaust is between him and the Joker. On Joker, he glances to one side off screen, works the controls, and veers in that direction. Traveling shot, Joker and Batman. Batman dangling beneath the Joker as they move over the dismantled fairgrounds. Wide angle, the Joker approaches the center of the fair, where the starship and moon structures tower over everything else. On Batman moving, he's dragged brutally across the rough, cratered surface of the moon. His costume is ripped in a dozen places. Blood streaks the lunar face. Another angle, the Joker rockets up the side of the spaceship structure, pulling Batman with him. On observation deck, a narrow railed ring that surrounds the spaceship just below the needled nose. The Joker rises up past it. Closer, as Batman is dragged up, he manages to hook one leg around the railing, stopping his upward flight. On Joker, his movement comes to an abrupt halt. He looks down off screen, reacts. His POV, Batman anchored to the railing, pulling up the rope. Wide angle, the Joker is drifted somewhat, so he and the rope are now at a slight angle to the vertical thrust of the rocket exhaust, which means Batman can reel him in without winding up barbecued. The Joker reacts in horror to this.
What are you doing?
Another angle, the Joker frantically maneuvers, trying to aim the exhaust so as to fry Batman. This is not easy since he has to keep himself upright so as to remain aloft. Favor Batman, he dodges the flames, doggedly pulling the Joker closer and closer.
In another minute, this whole place will be toast.
Another angle, Batman has pulled the Joker as close as he can without being roasted by the rocket exhaust. Now he climbs onto the railing and leaps for the Joker. Dramatic angle. Batman grabs the Joker, ripping at the latter's rocket harness as the two weave above the fairgrounds far below, drifting away from the spaceship sculpture. The Joker fights back, trying to push Batman off.
You're crazy! I'm your only chance to get out of here! Let me go or we'll both die!
Then I'll see you in hell.
Closer, he manages to kick one of the twin jets of the rocket pack, causing it to go askew and fire at an angle, causing the Joker to go into a spin. Another angle, the Joker goes into a nosedive, spiraling down spectacularly as Batman leaps from him for the railing. On Batman, he barely manages to grab the railing. He looks down off screen. On Joker falling, as he plummets, he manages to free himself of the out-of-control rocket, which jets off at an angle. On Moon Structure, the Joker falls and hits the rusted arc of the Moon Structure, breaking through it. Most of the covering cracks and falls in with him, revealing the skeletal frame of the structure. On base of spaceship structure, the rocket pack hits the base of the structure and explodes. Long shot, spaceship structure. For an instant, it looks like we have ignition as flames billow from the base of the spaceship structure, but the structure, instead of rising, begins to collapse as the weakened fins give way. On observation deck, Batman. The Dark Knight leaps from the deck once again as the structure collapses. Long shot, spaceship and moon. The spaceship topples onto the moon structure, crushing it. On Batman, falling. Out of batarangs and grappling guns, he grabs the protruding horizontal spire of another sculpture and swings around it, partially breaking the force of his fall. Another angle, it's still a punishing drop to the pavement. He lands hard, twisting one leg beneath him.
Ugh.
On Joker, still alive but trapped beneath the rubble, he shields himself as best as he can from more wreckage rains into shot. Another angle, Batman staggers into shot not far from where the Joker lies, presumably with multiple injuries. Batman's not looking much better himself, costume torn and ragged, blood streaking his face and body, one leg injured or broken. He limps forward. The Joker looks up and sees him. He grins, a ghastly rictus.
Okay, I give up.
Favor Batman. He hobbles toward the Joker. Whether to help or finish it is hard to say at this point. Pieces of flaming rubble are still falling from the spaceship structure. Angle includes Joker as Andrea suddenly materializes out of the night beside him. He reacts, looks up at her.
Too late! I surrendered. Tell her, Batman.
On Batman, he starts forward, surprise and fear on his face.
Andrea, you gotta get out of here. The place is wired to explode.
As if to underscore his words, a series of explosions begin in the distance, growing closer. Angle includes Andrea and Joker. A large piece of structure crashes down between them, the flames driving Batman back. Through the dancing heat, we can see Andrea. She is calm as only one who embraces death can be. If there is an emotion on her face and voice, it is sadness. During the next few shots, we can hear the string of explosions growing louder, even see them in the distance.
No. One way or another, it ends tonight.
Closer on her, she holds up one of the gas canisters.
Goodbye, my love.
On Joker, squirming, trying to pull himself out.
Oh, for once, I'm stuck without a punchline.
Wide angle, Andrea triggers the canister. Black mist obliterates our view of her and the Joker. On Batman, he realizes what she plans to do. He tries to reach her.
No!
Another angle, an explosion close by hurls him off screen. On street, Batman is hurled into shot next to a grating that is partially askew. Flaming debris rains down around him. He can barely move, but he tries to crawl back through the flames to the only woman he ever really loved. If he can't save her, at least he can die with her. Another angle, another off-screen explosion, really close, causes the street to collapse beneath him. Batman tumbles into the abyss.
Ah!
Interior, sewer. Batman, along with a shower of debris, falls into the swiftly running water and is carried into darkness. A moment later, another explosion causes the street to completely collapse, burying the sewer. Cut to panoramic angle, the fairgrounds. The whole place is going up in flames as the explosions tear the grounds apart. The Joker's wild laughter continues. In the center, at the base of the moon structure, is a small blot of black mist. But not for long. The mother of all explosions turns the blackness white hot, cutting off the Joker's laughter at its peak, and we cut to exterior aqueduct, night. Batman, battered and broken, pulls himself from the drainage pipe. He climbs on to the aqueduct and stares back at the conflagration. His shoulders sag in a defeat unbearable. Dissolved to interior, the Batcave on throne chair. Batman sits shell-shocked. His costume is ripped and blackened. We can see bandages beneath it. His cowl is pushed away. One leg is in a splint where his legging has been ripped away. Alfred steps in with a tray of bandages and medicinals. Favor Bruce. He looks at his fist, clenches it, then lets it fall limply. He looks up at Alfred.
You couldn't save her, Alfred.
I don't think she wanted to be saved, sir.
Favor Alfred. He hurts for him. He puts a hand on Bruce's shoulder.
Vengeance blackens the soul, Bruce. I always feared you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night, but you haven't fallen in. And I thank heaven for that. But Andrea fell into that pit years ago, and no one, not even you, could have pulled her back.
Favor Bruce. He knows the truth of what Alfred says, but it's of small comfort. As he looks away in sad reflection, close on Bruce, a sparkle of light cast from off-screen dances on his eye, interrupting him. He looks off-screen to find the source. Another angle. He stands, walks forward. Alfred watches him, puzzled.
What is it, Master Bruce?
On stalactite, a limestone fang descending from the ceiling, narrowing to a point in foreground. Bruce steps up to it. Rack focus to show Andrea's locket hanging from the tip of the formation. On Bruce, he lifts the dangling trinket gently in his hand as though afraid of bursting it like a bubble. His face is filled with wonder. Dissolved to exterior Gotham Harbor cruise ship night. A cruise ship leaves the harbor. The city skyline blazes in the background. The ship is passing under the Gotham Bay Bridge. The prow is already in shadow. Closer, promenade deck. Party noises can be heard in background. A woman in black, whom we see from the back with a scarf around her head, steps up to the rail to gaze at the city she's leaving behind. Another angle, still not showing us the woman's face. A lively middle-aged passenger, think Ned Beatty, not unlike the salesman we met in the plane, crosses behind her with a drink in his hand. He sees the woman and sidles up to the rail beside her.
Hey, you're missing the party. Quite a sight.
Yes.
Favor passenger. It percolates through the haze of several drinks that she's not happy. He takes in the basic black garb, says,
I'm sorry. Have you lost someone?
On woman, except for her wistful eyes, her face is in shadows.
Yes.
Hold on her for a beat. The bridge's shadow engulfs her, plunging her into darkness. Cut to exterior Gotham City skyline, night. Panning slowly, the dark deco metropolis until we come to the Dark Knight, standing on a concrete precipice, overlooking the city. It's all he has now, perhaps all he ever had. Close on Batman, the eternal guardian, without love, without pity. Dramatic angle, the bat signal suddenly lights up the sky behind him. Batman turns, fires his grappling gun, and swings, cape flaring dramatically toward the light. Fade out, the end.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for my wonderful casting partners, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you again, Chris.